That's the same as good evening, it just is night. Night and evening are the same, are they not? Good evening, everyone. And welcome to our January 23rd, 2024 regular council meeting. And I'll call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. Phil was here at 20 to 6. He was so excited about this agenda, so thank you for coming so early.
I missed last
We
week.
appreciate that. I noticed that. You did miss the last one.
Sorry.
So we do have we have a deletion of our delegation. Staff Sergeant sent his regrets, and I think we have an addition from Ethan.
Yes, just that the staff sergeant is unable to come, and he's going to come later in February. I think we do have an invitation from the Minister of Municipal Affairs, which I think we could probably do as part of the provincial engagement 13.4.
Part of what?
Added into the provincial engagement item 13.4.
For Rage 5, would that be in a closed item
Yeah.
to speak about anything we have to speak to with Minister McIver? I see no objections, so we'll add that into 13.4. As amended, please to accept and adopt the agenda as amended.
I move the council adopt the agenda as amended.
Any other comments? Call the vote, all in favor? That's carried. Okay, we have item 4.1, January 9th, 2024, regular council meeting minutes. Councilor Windsor?
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. I'll move that we adopt the January 9th, 2024 regular council meeting minutes as amended.
Okay. Amended. What would you like to amend?
I gotta find it, just give me 1 second here. It is on motion, or resolution 01424. We have an extra inform, the word inform in that motion. Cook-off mayoral challenge as information and inform Mayor Hunter will inform. The first inform should probably not be there.
Sure. Or maybe they were going to inform me to tell them, to inform them. But that makes sense. All right. Anything else? A motion to accept the January 9th minutes as amended. I'll call the vote. All in favor? That's carried. And I might mention right now that Councillor Williams has sent his regrets that he can't be with us tonight. We have that item 4.2, the January 17th, 2024 budget meeting minutes. Councillor Windsor?
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. I'll move that the January 17, 2024 budget meeting minutes be accepted as presented.
Okay, any comments? Call the vote, all in favor? That's carried. We have item 6.1, council reports. Councillor Moore, do you want to start?
Yes. I just had the one committee meeting. My time is kind of mixed up right now. So I had a virtual committee meeting, I think on the 16th. No, was it? You were there. Yes. Okay, so I had the one committee meeting. I think that's all I had this last time. The January the two that we had before have already been reported on. Sorry, that's a little disjointed.
Okay, thank you. And just so I don't not acknowledge, or just acknowledge Phil, I welcome Linda and Tracy and Leanne as well to our gallery. So, welcome. Councillor Windsor.
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. As you may have looked in your external reports, there's a series of different documents there from the Water Commission and RDR MUG. In our agenda, there is a hyperlink to a video, an EPA video about the 2024 drought risk and management. It's presented by Stacey Smythe, who is the Assistant Deputy Minister in Regulatory Assurance in EPA, and is the gal that we met with, as RDR MUG met with in late November to talk about this very thing. The video is 27 minutes long, so it's too long to be showing at the meeting, but I urge everybody to go to the agenda and click on that link and watch that video. It's very informative. From RDR MUG, we had a meeting with Minister Sigurdsson, Agriculture Minister. It's reported in the external reports. The only thing I'll say in addition to that here is that he wanted to talk about the drought, and we wanted to talk about in-stream storage. And so it was more of a informal, introductory kind of thing, and just starting to build relationships. The board meeting, we had two representatives from EPA there, Roger Ramchurika, and he is the executive director of the Regulatory Assurance South, as well as Catherine Medinsky, and she is the engagement and education specialist for EPA. And they were there both to talk about the potential drought and what the EPA is doing about dealing with that, and that's covered somewhat in that video as well. There was also discussion as what RDR MUG's role is going to be in the possible in-stream storage on the Red Deer River, and what our role will be both from a structural point of view as well as from an operational point of view. The Water Commission is having a strat plan meeting tomorrow, and that is in Red Deer, or pardon me, it's in Innisfail. And it is primarily to talk about the strat plan for the commission, but a big part of that is going to be the drought and what the commission is going to do in terms of planning for a shortage of water. There are a series of documents in the external reports that cover that as well. Parkland Regional Library, there has been nothing more other than our presentation that will be taking place on February 22nd is now complete, and we're going to be submitting it shortly to Parkland for inclusion in their next agenda. Thank you, Mayor.
It's good to hear, and I watched that video today, and if you read the external report Councillor Windsor submitted, if you want to know anything about drought and water restriction and plans and process, those are the things to, and you should. I'm certainly not going to tell you you have to, but really good video and great information in that document on what Minister Schultz is advising us and the province is advising us about right now. Thank you for that. And Councillor Deputy Mayor Ingle.
January 10th, attended the MPC meeting. We approved the setback variance on the row house and the front yard setback variance. Both of those you'll find in the CAO report. January 10th was PG&C. We're bringing forward CS 001-24 for recommendation or with recommendation. Council remuneration with recommendation, council proclamation policy with recommendation. So we'll talk about those at that time. January 17th, we had a budget meeting, and that's what I've attended.
Thank you. Councillor McCoy?
I didn't have very much, but just let me, I have financial governance committee on the 12th of January, and on the 15th is the Financial Governance Committee that Dorothy spoke of, and pardon me. And I think that's it. Yeah, that's it.
Thanks. Councillor Basil, anything you want to share?
It's a beautiful day today.
It was, from your window, you said.
Yeah. As you're aware, I'm not on committees or boards, so I'm just going to enjoy the day. Thank you.
Thank you. You'll see in our agenda package the culmination of a lot of meetings with our mid-sized mayor team of 4, Kevin Ferguson from Pinoka, Jean Barkley from Innisfail, and Kim Harris from Crossfield, all mayors that we've been putting together in terms of reference for the mid-sized town mayors caucus. So that's taken some time, and it's been a really interesting and valuable exercise for sure. I had a finance meeting with Cape. I had a board meeting with Cape as well last week in Pinoka County, and I'll have that report to the next meeting. Mountview Family Resource Network held a blanket exercise last week, and it was fantastic. And I thank them for the work they do to keep our community busy and looked after. Interagency was on the 16th, and again, sitting with a bunch of wonderful volunteers and groups of agencies, not-for-profits, boards, staff that look after our community social needs and otherwise, and thank them for the work they do for our community and region. Really an interesting meeting with a lot of very wise people. I listened to the Local Government Fiscal Framework webinar on Thursday, and that presentation I'll forward to they're sending it out to everybody, all elected officials and CEOs, and I will certainly report on that next meeting as well. And that's what I know right now. I hope to go to that meeting tomorrow with the strategic planning, but I've had something more prioritized come up. So we'll expect a report back from Councillor Windsor. Hmm? No, it's Water Commission. They're doing a presentation, strategic plan. So I will have a motion unless there's questions of anybody about any of these reports. Make the motion, Deputy Mayor.
I move that council accept council reports as information.
Any other comments or questions? Call the vote, all in favor? That's carried. We have the CAO report. Do you have anything to add, Ethan?
No.
All right. Any questions or comments? Councilor Windsor?
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. I've got a couple of questions. I'm wondering where we are with the MDP. I'm wondering where we are with the Sean Slots and the testing that was being done there. And I wonder if we could get an update on the 5-0 Club and what upgrades were being done there.
Thanks for the question. First, to speak to the MDP, that currently is just, and we have our planner here that can maybe even give an update on that, but we had an initial draft, and now our planning staff is going through that and working with the consultant to make some additional changes to it, and tweak it, get it ready to come to council. So that's where that is. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that, Tracy.
Nope, you got it.
Okay. And then,
Is there a timeline? Like, I'm just saying it's 4 years now, so are we close?
I anticipate getting back with the consultant in February, so we can sit down together and go through it again, just so we can put it together as a final draft.
All right, thank you.
and then the land sale is just still, there's some tweaking. Actually, the lawyers are just currently working on with regards to wording in the agreement, and that will probably be coming back very shortly. And what was the third thing?
5-0 Club.
5-0 Club. You want to speak to that, Nicole? Just oh, are you meaning the building?
There was some work that was gonna be done on the 5-0 Club. Sorry.
Well, there was-
The old building?
Which 5-0 Club? The old 5-0 Club?
No, the one,
Oh, the
the
new.
dog park.
Oh, our
Oh.
dog?
Yes, sorry, that is gonna be presented when they come as part of the external request. They're gonna work that into that request when they come and do that at that time.
Thank you.
Yeah,
It's not 5 Club, it's private land.
well, we might as well ask about the old 5-0 club then, and if that has finished that transaction, and is there any motion moving forward?
So that is just, we're just finalizing the land agreement there with the buyer as well, who's finalizing his plans for that as well. So that's just right in the final stages there.
Okay, any other questions? Councilor McCoy?
I'm curious, what happened to all of the equipment that was at 5 Club? Dishes, the tables, chairs, the piano, all the equipment downstairs, the pool table, etc.?
Go ahead, Nicole.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So, a lot of it was repurposed. So the piano, for instance, the piano that we had in the NPR was not in as good of shape as that one, so it's now moved into the NPR for the community to be able to use it. Because we already had fully stocked community rental spaces in both the train station as well as the NPR, we were able to have other community groups take things that they could use that came out of that building to try and help support things locally. Some things had to be donated to our local thrift store because they just couldn't be accommodated. And I believe that Public Works took care of the pool table that was downstairs, and I'm not too sure about where that is. My understanding was that it was going to go to the auction for sale, but I'm not sure the status of that. The tables and chairs actually moved. So some of them came back into our facility, some of them went back to the 5 Club in their building that they're currently in. So we did the best that we could with what was in there to make sure that it stayed within the community as best possible to support other groups that could use the things.
Thank you.
Can I find out, and maybe this has been reported back, but not that I've heard, because I did miss a meeting in October, but we submitted a grant for a library over a year ago. Do we have any information on that, or have they responded at all, or can we follow up to find out something? Amanda, do you know that?
Well,
You might
no, I don't know that. I do know that we have not heard anything about that grant application. We did have, a few months ago, a couple more questions about the application, but since then we haven't heard anything else. And when we check our status, because it's on portal online, it just says it's pending, and we've also, I believe we've followed up with them via email too, and they aren't able to tell us anything else at this time.
So maybe I'm starting to believe about the federal government, perhaps. Because really, that's been a year, and it's a, what's the name of the grant, Amanda? See, we've even forgot that, haven't we? It's been so long. Well, I know, but it's a federal grant that we applied for.
I believe it's the GICB. I'd have to double check.
Okay,
That sounds familiar.
Green and Inclusive Community Buildings,
okay,
possibly.
yeah. And so is there anything, like, is that the only, like, they're not answering questions and they'll get back to us? Is that, don't call us, we'll call you kind of message is what we're looking at? Should we interpret?
Well, we haven't pushed too hard. But, yeah, we could ask again. I don't know.
Do you
what
want
else
to give me their
to
number?
tell. Give you the number?
Just kidding. Just kidding. Oh, thank you. Who had, Councilor McCoy, then Deputy Mayor?
Just that made me think of something else. Was that a grant that the library had to pursue themselves, then we're supporting them in that pursuit. Would it pay for us to have the library come and do an update on any loans that they've applied for through other grant opportunities?
So since we're the building owner, we applied for this grant. And I'm not sure, I wouldn't know, do you know anything about loans the library has applied for? I'm not aware of anything like that.
Deputy Mayor?
I think that when we applied for this last year and it was declined, I thought we didn't get our answer. I thought it was in February. Is when it came, when their decision came, but I could be wrong.
So the previous grant, the previous time we applied was for a different grant, which was through the Alberta government. And so I don't think the timelines would be the same.
Okay, Councillor Baswick? Oh, okay. You made me spill my coffee. Go ahead. You can make that motion, thank you.
I would move to accept the Chief Administration Officer's report for January 23rd, 2024 as information.
Thank you. Because you surprised me, I still had a question, but thanks for the motion. Because it's very exciting to see Valorosa Park activity. Thank you to the ladies sitting in the front row for all that work. And I was clarified today that we don't accept roosters in town, so that was dealt with on that action request form. And pretty excited still about that downtown mural. I don't blame him for not, I mean, he could be doing it now, but who knows when it's gonna snow and be really cold, so can't predict the weather in Alberta in the winter. And excited about the trade show, and thanks to that committee for reviving that. Everybody booked their April 6th and 7th weekend to be at the arena and participate in the trade show. So, having said that, I hope I didn't miss anything. Well, the action requests aren't, I did, the rooster I mentioned. So, we have a motion. Any other comments or questions? Call the vote, all in favor? Let's see our report. Thank you. We have item, what? Oh, just a minute, I know I'm on the wrong page. Item 7, 2024 budget, so we have the cost of living adjustment comparison. Motion, yeah.
So thank you for the report in here. I would move the council accept the cost of living adjustment COLA comparison as information.
Any questions or comments? Call the vote, all in favor? That's carried. We have item 7.2, the 2024 operating budget. Mixed up my pages, so I gotta get rid of a few. Okay, so we have a variety of motions here and discussions. So the first is on the lagoon maintenance program, stage 1. Councillor Windsor?
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. I will move to approve the sanitary lagoon maintenance program stage 1 as outlined in the business case for $250,000 to be funded from the wastewater reserves.
Okay,
Can I speak?
yeah, you can
Yes,
just do that.
okay, so obviously I'm gonna be in favor of this because it has to be done. I don't think we can get around that. However, I hate approving this project without a maintenance plan in place to prevent it from happening in the future. And would like to see that come back somehow, sometime, some way. And I think there was conversation at some point in time that we had to have Alberta Environment come down and speak to us about lagoons. And I would like to see that follow forward as well. And I don't know whether that takes motions to make those things happen or how we proceed with that.
It would take motions. So there's one motion on the lagoon for 250,000, and it's in the budget that we've been looking at. So I guess say those again. So the lagoon itself, and what else did you want to come out with the lagoon?
To have a maintenance plan for lagoons, so we can work at preventing this from happening again. And then the third thing would be that we had talked about at Committee of the Whole having Alberta Environment come and speak to us about lagoons and release. And
Yeah, I remember that conversation, because I think one of the comments was it never hurts to have all that information, and Alberta Environment, with all the information we already have, deal with lagoons all the time. So, having said that, the first motion then, are there any comments or questions on the $250,000 for the dredging project? Okay, so if everybody's ready for that vote, I will call the vote to approve the sanitary lagoon maintenance program as outlined in the business case for $250,000 from the wastewater reserve. Call the vote, all in favor? That's carried. Are you making other motions, or do you want to carry on to the?
Well, I guess.
for direction, Mayor Hunter. Sure, I'll move that council direct administration to prepare a maintenance plan for the operation of the lagoons and return it to council at a future date. Does that work?
Well, I guess I have a question about and Craig, I guess to you. So the dredging, when is the dredging going to take place? When would that happen? You might have told us before, but I'm going to say it didn't, but I'm just kidding. You might have. Go ahead.
Thank you for the question. So when is contingent on approval? So at this point in time, we'll go to market. We'll seek qualified contractors and select appropriately, and then move forward in due course. It would be through this year. Absolutely, we'd get that done. There's some other stages we have to go through. We got to get land spreading approval, and then we have to find a farmer who's willing to play with us and all that sort of fun stuff. But we'll get through all that. Was there another question in there?
Just about the meat, I want to speak to the question of a maintenance plan.
Yeah, I guess, so with respect to the maintenance plan, just in general, we maintain them operationally. I think what happened with us was the commercial dumping led to some decay to our treatment system, and we had a large sediment buildup as a result of some of that dumping. And so those chemicals that we were adding and the bacteria that we were adding to get the sludge to decrease were all as a result of our system not behaving and functioning healthily. So getting rid of the sludge that builds up naturally through the process over time. So it's not something that we can ever avoid. This is just a factor of the treatment process that we have. So the maintenance program is every once in a while you better check your sludge depth to know how far in the future you are before you have to desludge. That's really to summarize what a maintenance program for the lagoons would sound like. So that's I guess that would be in a nutshell how I would approach that sort of an answer, because it's really not something that you can anticipate. It's such a complex system in and of itself that you have to monitor over time and react to how it's behaving appropriately. And I think that's what we did. We noticed that we weren't behaving properly. We went and investigated. We found out what. We came up with a treatment program that would help us treat in the meantime, and now we've got an end game solution, which is get our system back into a healthy for treatment cell operation again. So.
Okay, those are more?
Yes, I think you've kind of answered my question, because I'm quite sure prevention is not possible. We've had to dredge them before, we'll have to dredge them again. I guess where that's concerned, sediment, of course, with that commercial dumping, you're going to get sediment for sure. My question was about like car washes. If somebody has something that puts sediment into, it's really sediment, do they have to have some kind of filtration? It doesn't go right into our sewers, does it?
That's a good question. So when we do building development approvals for car washes and things like that, we go through their system and make sure that they've got the right sediment traps in place. They have, down on the ground, they'll have water goes in, the sediments go down to the bottom, and the water goes over the top, and then they'll have an oil separator as well to make sure that we don't get the high end, the floatables either. So they have sort of a dual system that protect the downstream system. We do periodic checks. We've got good relationships with our car washes in town with that, with respect to this issue anyways. So, you're welcome.
Deputy Mayor?
So I have no problem with the development of a policy in regards to the lagoon system, but I think it's not something we can decide tonight. We need more information, and as Craig said, like we can't determine if it will ever happen again or won't. But I think that's something that we need to work on. We can't just go ahead and make a policy without understanding the whole process of it. So I wouldn't be in favor of that tonight.
Okay. I have a question too, Craig, about how do you know that the desludging or the dredging is successful? And you can report that back as to the success of the dredging to council, and I think that's a fair thing that we would ask. But how would you know it's successful? And
the 101 book I have, Lagoons 101, I'm asking questions.
No, that's a great question, and I look forward to finding out the answer. Because I'm sure it's going to be a turbidity-based decision, so it'll have they'll stir it all up. You pump it into a treatment system, and the water coming out the other end will have a different turbidity, and then the water in the pool's turbidity would slowly drop over time as they're processing it. So I'm guessing there'll be a point of no benefit. So it'll still be really dirty water, but it doesn't matter, because we'll want that sediment layer at the bottom, that 1-inch layer, to kind of kick off our bacteria anyways. So I'm not exactly sure what that criteria will be like, but absolutely, I'll bring it back.
So I think, if I could, to your comment too, that there are reports submitted annually on the wastewater and on water and on stormwater. So with, I think that's important that that's reported back on the success of the dredging. And then we've talked about as well that, that policy is what's going to help inform council and help get the reports we need and to understand, and as we discuss them, we understand more. So that a reporting policy on this critical infrastructure, I think, is the direction I would want to head. And having said that, at this point, I think what I'm really interested in is that we get the report back if it's successful, and then creating that reporting policy on stuff that council knows annually, or if it's semi-annually, whenever the report's going to the government, could come to council at the same time, and we all have the same information. So that's what I would look at as being effective for us. And I know we did discuss it briefly prior. So how we form that, I think, will be
we'll form it anyway. And thanks for your answers, I appreciate that. So right now, would you amend that just to report back on the success of the dredging and then?
I guess, and maybe it's a matter of reporting and making a motion to get reporting back. Maybe it's not necessarily a management plan. Maybe it's a reporting so that, this came out of the blue as far as I'm concerned. Like we all of a sudden, we were 50% of the capacity on our sewage lagoons, and we should have been kind of aware of that coming up and building up as it came. And so maybe it's a reporting thing that I'm looking at and after, rather than a policy, a maintenance policy. But we should be aware that we shouldn't be blindsided by this. We should be aware that it's coming up and it's going to be a problem in the future that we're going to have to deal with. And I think that that's what I would like to see. And so if that's the reporting we need to do, then maybe that motion's going to come later in the agenda, and I'll retract the motion I just made.
Okay. Thanks for that.
However, Mayor, I still would like to see Alberta Environment come and talk to us.
Yeah, I'd like to see that too. I think we have talked about in the past, everybody, and information is information, and the more we're informed, the better. And these things raise those questions that Craig's answered very well for us, and then we have Alberta Environment who sees the whole province full of lagoons. Councillor McCoy, did you have your hand up?
Not for this.
Oh,
For the next one.
okay. Do you want to make a motion on the Alberta Environment presentation?
Sure. I will move that Council Direct Administration to arrange to have a representative from Alberta Environment come and talk to us about the operation, maintenance of sewage lagoons.
Okay, any questions on that? We'll call the vote on, go ahead.
I guess I would need to know, is that something that they will do, and will have Alberta Environment come out and, I guess through the chair to administration, is that something that we can request from them? Like, do they do that sort of thing, or
Okay,
I don't
that's a
know.
good question, yeah. Who knows that answer? Craig, you look like you're
Well,
deep in thought.
and Craig will speak to this, but just to clarify too, remember, this has been kind of an ongoing thing. We know we had issues with, that's why we shut down the commercial dumping a few years ago, and then we knew we were having issues slowly but surely with our lagoon. And so this is kind of the culmination of the last few years that slowly but surely we've been learning more and more about the problems there and trying to approach it and treat it, and this is kind of an extension of all of that. So this has kind of been ongoing for a number of years. So, if you want to speak to that, Craig?
Thank you. I mean, we can always ask. I'm not exactly sure how comfortable our field officer would be with this, but I'm always willing to reach out to them and see what their thoughts are.
Thanks for that.
So then I guess I would ask that Councillor Windsor's motion be worded like that we ask administration to ask them, or direct them to ask, because I don't know. If they refuse to come, we've got a motion that they have to do this. I don't know how that would work.
Well, I
So
think it's
just
certainly-
in the motion that we ask council, or we direct council to ask them,
To invite them to.
to invite them, yeah.
And did it say specifically what you want them to come speak about? Did the motion say that?
Yeah, the operation and maintenance of sewage lagoons.
And Luana, you'll catch that and read it back to us.
Moved by Councillor Windsor that administration invite a representative from Alberta Environment and Protected Areas to speak to council regarding the operations and maintenance of sanitary lagoons.
That's a better word than sewage, isn't it? Thank you, Luann. Okay,
It up for us.
okay. I'll call the vote on that. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, so one down. I'm just finding the papers again. Yes, we can do the GIS.
I move that council approve the GIS software implementation project for $60,000 to be funded from the Strategic Initiatives and Contingency Reserve.
Okay, any questions or comments on that? I think with the knowledge, remember that it's 30,000 added to the budget going forward that we're just acknowledging, and we did when we discussed that at the budget. Yes, Amanda?
I would
This is my watcher of hands here. Thank you for that.
Thank you. I do just want to point out, because at our meeting last week, I mentioned there was 184,000 in that reserve, and I put this into the RFD, but part of the money from that reserve was to go towards a future road project. And so there is only about $68,000 left in this strategic initiatives and contingency reserve. So I just wanted you to be aware of that when making your decision.
And she also wrote it in the RFD, so but thanks for that too, because thank you for that, and then thanks for the information. So everybody's aware that, and the motion is read. To approve the GIS software for 60,000 funded from strategic initiatives and contingency. Any more comments? Call the vote, all in favor? That's carried. And we have one more on the operating budget. To accept the operating budget as information. Councillor Moore.
I move that council accept the draft 2 operating budget as information.
Councillor McCoy.
On January 16th, I asked for like the equivalent of fourth quarter reporting, which we haven't yet received, and we should have received it by now, if not, maybe next meeting. I would like to see, and I requested it, I would like to see the line by line updated, because it currently is back to November 30th at the very latest, because that's when we met with it. And also the 2024 consolidated operating budget. I would like the expenses to be beside the budget for 2023 actuals and 2024 budget. I think it would allow us to make better decisions on budgeting and where we can maybe cut and where we don't have to cut. If we know what the actuals were and we can ask the right questions. It's very difficult to do with only 2 budget figures, which are really just estimates.
So your question, just
to get an updated line by line, which is the back of the book, to December 31st, as well as another column put in this document. In between 2023 approved and 2024 proposed, I'd like a 2023 actuals, and I'd like it to show that.
like the line by line does.
Yeah. But the line by line is broken up differently.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
You're right. Okay, so can someone with administration speak to that?
Yeah, so as I explained at the budget meeting, the actions are not completed, the year-end financials are not completed, they won't be for a number of weeks yet. So that information is not available yet. But any different way that you want the information structured or formatted, and that would need to be done in a motion.
Can I just speak to that, Amanda, or Councilor McCoy?
Yes,
Because I did request that, and from what I understand, and maybe Amanda can answer this, what I understand about our system is it's, with the line by line, it's not our fourth quarter report we're asking for, because, I mean, last year we got our fourth quarter report in March, and we certainly understand that all the final bookkeeping and accounts payable and receivable are there, but the line by line that you generated for our budget book, It's just a matter of a MediaWare application or your software application or whatever to say we like that till the end of December 2023 and it can generate it. And that's what we have as of December 31st, which is much more accurate than the end of November. So that's why I asked for it as well, and I believe it can happen because I believe we have that efficient of a software system and accurate of a software system. So can someone answer that, and then I'll go back to Councilor McCoy.
So yes, we can give you numbers as of December 31st. However, they're not accurate numbers. So we don't even have all of our invoices for 2023 in our hands yet, let alone posted into the system. So if you would like updated numbers in the line-by-line report, you would just have to be aware that those numbers are going to change and they will change significantly. So any questions that come out of those, like maybe to explain a variance or whatnot, it may be because the account is not finalized yet. And so the only concern with that is it's taking away from our day-to-day operations, being pulled into answering questions on account balances that are not finalized yet. So yes, we can provide it. It would just be with the caveat that these are not the finalized numbers, and that in itself may cause confusion. And then same with providing the operating budget report with a year-to-date account. So I guess there's two ways of looking at that. One is just providing the year-to-date balances, again, that exist today but aren't actually the finalized numbers. Or the second approach is to forecast what those are going to be. And that will just take, forecasting will take significant time to do that and put it together. So if council wishes for that information, I would request a motion, because that's taking us away from getting the year-end completed on time and hopefully getting those year-end reports by March. But otherwise, it's doable. You just have to know it's not automatic, so it will take a little bit of time. For instance, the request I got Monday, I did not have time to prepare for today. But it's also not the finalized information. So hopefully that answers your question.
So really, council can decide if they want to extend the time it takes to complete year end, or have us work on these forecasting and other information.
Councilor McCoy, and then Deputy Mayor.
I guess my question is, we have a motion on the books, and it's still standing, that we will get 4 quarterly reports. And just like the September 30th, John, the September 30th quarterly, it's not accurate, it's not exact, but it gives us a place in time to look at, to compare. I realize that once you're done, we can get a final financial statement, but it doesn't even add up like this. So it makes it impossible to use that one to do this. So I guess all I'm asking for is, what do you do in October to give us the September 30th one? Why can't that just be done as easy as it is?
Well, so that information is forthcoming. At year end, we have a significant number of other processes happening where it takes longer to generate the 4th quarter report. And so, yes, the 4th quarter report is still coming. And then the year-end financial statements. But we're not even at a point to bring you that, and that's why it's not here yet. So that outstanding motion is still being taken into account. It's just, it's not ready to be presented at this point.
Yeah, I'm not really interested in getting a whole bunch of numbers that actually don't mean anything anyway, that's taking administrative staff away from preparing what we need. I understand that some people want it, but the numbers aren't real. So I don't know what we gain, what we're comparing with false numbers.
Councillor Windsor?
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. I'm wondering, can I ask Councillor McCoy a question? And however I do that, are you looking for the actual numbers at year end in order to be better informed? Is that what it is? And maybe those numbers aren't available till March, and that's okay too? Is that what? I guess is it like I think.
I'm looking for a fourth quarter report, not with all the year-end processes done, just what you spit out at the end of December. I know it's not complete, but it also allows us to compare back to the September 30th one, the June one, the March one. Whereas what we normally get is just the final financial statement, and you cannot take that in the first 3 quarters and make sense of it without a lot of adding and subtracting and moving things around. And I'm just asking for the same document we get every quarter. And either that or we need to remove that. We need to rescind that motion and not ask for a fourth quarter if we're not going to get it.
So that's incorrect, and that needs to
did
be
you-
clarified,
Okay, go ahead.
because that's just not true and that's not accurate, and it just needs to be clear that that's not right. The information's not ready, we're not bringing it. We just can't bring it until we have the information. So that I don't understand those comments, but just to be clear, there's nothing not being brought, it's just not ready yet. It's the end of the year, there's a lot of process that goes into a year-end financial process, and we do this every year, and every year it's the same. And so that needs to be clear.
So what I heard during this whole thing, and every councillor is actually entitled to have the information they need to make the best, to be the most effective councillor they can be. And so if they ask for information, that helps them do their job the best. So what I'm hearing is to generate that, just the line by line that we have in our binder, that can be done, and it's not a big deal. And I believe that's what you're asking for, is that line by line December 31st date. Just a line by line. It's not we understand, Amanda, that the fourth quarter is coming, March or whatever, like that's generally around the time we get it. So, I would support a motion about that, because I also asked for that in the information I need to do my best job with the budget I can do. And the other part of that, we have a motion to accept the current budget as information, but with budgets too, and there's been a lot of discussion how we're probably one of the only councils that haven't set a preliminary number. And that preliminary number that many councils set, they come back to the budget after the fourth quarter financials are presented, and they tweak anything that needs to be tweaked. And then we go into the tax rate setting. So what I'm after for council, whoever they may be, is that they need the information they need to get to the best decisions for them to be the effective councillor at making their decision on the budget. And if that December 31st, line by line, can be generated in half an hour or less, or if we don't take your whole day up, Amanda, doing that, then I think that's a fair request for councillors to do a good job. And that's what I think we're asking here, or that's what I think Councillor McCoy's asking, and I know I asked it. And I don't, if it's really difficult, then I guess we can't ask you to do that, but can we ask you to do that? And can it be generated for council to see, just knowing and understanding it's just the December 31st number with nothing going forward into January?
Yes, we can provide the line by line information fairly easily. Now, part of your request was also to bring the updated reserve continuity and grant continuity, there was not enough time from the time I received that request because there are outstanding transactions there that we need to reconcile. So if you want that information, we can also bring it. Again, that's gonna be part of the fourth quarter report, but, I mean, that, there are a couple outstanding transactions there, but if you would like it sooner, then that's fine too. And even bringing the budget with an additional column that Councillor McCoy is asking for is possible. It's just that it's not gonna be the fourth quarter report. It would just be a combination of all those line by line items into the format of the operating budget, so. And I just need a little bit of time.
Yeah,
to
no,
get-
and that's fine, yeah, but I just want to respond to my request that I was just hoping to have that tonight when we talked about the funding of the East Reservoir, and I just went with the old numbers, that's fine. It was just, I thought if that could happen, but I can go with the old numbers too. It's not it wasn't a big deal. But what I'm hearing is that line by line could be done, and then the fourth quarter, we always expect that, it's always well done and well received, and thank you for those answers. Go ahead, Councillor McCoy.
I don't recall putting a deadline on when it had to happen. I'm just saying that before we can approve something, I need this information for my own internal workings, how I look and study the budget, right? If it takes you longer to get that information, I understand. And that's all I'll ask for, and I will ask for a recorded vote.
Who made the budget motion? I
I
wrote it down.
I did.
Deputy Councillor Walsh. Well, I put DM and that's sometimes Deputy Mayor, so, but maybe it was you. Because with that motion, I wonder if there could be a friendly amendment to start talking to our external groups. What?
Nothing, that was.
Oh, I thought maybe it was on there and I missed it. But because we're at a point, I believe, that bringing external groups in here for the conversation would be a good idea. We have we did some good work on the budget, and I know that's our priority with committee of the whole, that we start talking to these groups, and can we bring them in like within the next short while to understand what their asks are, because there's some outstanding asks, and I'm just wondering if you take that friendly amendment to us to set up meetings with the external groups.
I think it's quite a different subject. I'd rather see this stay as, accepting an operating budget information is quite a different subject than bringing in external groups, so I would prefer it was a different motion.
Okay. Well, I brought it up, so maybe somebody will make that different motion. I just say, to me, it's time, but that's fine. Are there any other questions on the operating budget? I have one. Does anybody else have one? Councillor Bazard has one.
Thank you, Mayor. With all due respect to the discussion, my internal thinking is that this is premature, because if you're going to get figures that are effectively, for lack of a better term, dreamt up, here's a number, and it's not real, it serves no purpose for positive decision making. Because if you're going to get numbers that are not factual or accurate, just to fill a column of numbers, to satisfy curiosity, to me that is, it's a waste of financial time in order to do that. We had a process that we were doing this over the last few years. It went quite well. I don't see the reasoning for the request, I guess. Again, with all due respect.
Okay, thanks for that. So, I'm wondering too, and I don't think I miss things in the budget, because I do pay attention, but maybe I did. The $100,000 for the Butte Reservoir, recommended actions and work. Is that in the budget right now? Amanda, or that, like, we talked about that even in our press release about the 100,000 coming to the budget for planning on those, on that work. So is that in there?
Not to my knowledge. I defer to Craig to see if you're aware.
Not at this point in time, and the reason for that is, because I've kind of forgotten to bring it forward for the operating budget conversation, but we will be going forward with an RFD to go forward with that.
Okay, so we should put it in the budget somewhere? Well, I think we should. I'm not really asking, I'm thinking that should.
I'm not really the best process guy to ask, but I mean, yeah, I think you guys can add whatever you want to a budget.
Yeah, I know we can, I think it's important because it's been talked about and it is part of our budget process, and I was actually reading the press release again today and I thought, oh, I should ask that question. Deputy Mayor.
Would that funding be coming out of a reserve or out of operating?
We'd have to give that some consideration, but ultimately it won't hit the tax bottom line because it'll be funded from the water user fees. So we'd have to review how the fees were calculated to see if it's probably a reserve because the fees are already set this year. But I would like to look at that a little bit closer.
Okay, thank you.
So is it time for a friendly amendment to include that in the next draft brought back? Or the next opportunity to bring that?
It's just a draft, aren't we bringing other things?
Okay, so it is that we'll just have two different motions then for those things. Because you're right, we're accepting it as information.
Yeah.
What is here in front of us, and then if we have other
What you're
asks.
saying wouldn't be accepted as information, it would be a request.
You're right.
Well, thank you.
It's critical thinking down there. Thank you.
I've been practicing all
Yes,
the
I
time.
know you would, in wherever you were, yes. Can't say where you
You can now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a motion to accept the budget as information. If there's other motions coming out, we'll make them then. So I'll call the vote on the budget as information. All in favor? That's carried. Councilor Cody, do you have any?
No.
Councilor Windsor, you had your hand up?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Hunter. I too had on my notes as the fourth motion here to set out dates and for the external agencies to come forward and with their budgetary requests. The library, museum, I can think of. The 5-0 Club, there may be more, but I think it's time that we set the date for that and get the invitations out because we're getting close. I believe we're getting close to knowing where we are with our operation.
So how would you like to frame that motion? Good, like what dates, or
I guess I
do we
would
send out a survey? Do we do committee of the whole?
I wonder if we could do a survey to see what dates would be available to do that.
So,
We haven't been, yeah.
Ethan, well,
Maybe I'd recommend maybe just a motion that we bring back some options to the next council meeting, and then in the meantime, we'll do a survey and we can gather up some options and it can be set. If that works, that's an idea.
okay.
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. Did Osbo capture that? Yes.
What did it say? I think that we would like to have dates brought back to the next council meeting to set up with the external groups.
Yes, so, did you make that motion? Moved by Councilor Windsor that administration bring back options for dates for the external organizations to give their presentation to council.
Was that it?
Yeah, did you include the next council meeting?
Let's say it one more time, when you're done, ready?
That administration bring back options at the February 13th, 2024 regular council meeting for the external organizations to give their presentations.
Okay, is that it? Council Moore?
It's not so much, but I'm just hoping that we wouldn't have more than 2 on a council meeting night.
Oh, I think we're trying to avoid council meeting nights, aren't we?
Oh, please, yes, that would be good.
Yeah.
You know, the plan is to have them come to a committee of the whole, like a separate meeting where the only thing that you're doing that night is hearing from the groups.
Okay. It'll probably be a 2-hour meeting, I'm thinking. Yeah. Okay, I'll call the vote on that. All in favor? That's carried. Is that it then?
Question.
Yes?
On the previous to this one, Councilor McCoy requested a recorded vote. Councilor McCoy, did you vote opposed?
No,
You were all for?
no.
And
It was accepting it as information.
Thank you.
I'm glad you heard that. I didn't. I'm sorry. Okay. And then any further direction at the discretion of council, so I think we say that's a wrap on item 7.1, 2? Are we all good? All right.
What about the 100,000 for the Butte?
Oh, yes.
You want to do something about that?
We need that brought back to the next meeting. Thank you. I have it wrote down. So we need the, so the options for the Butte Reservoir, $100,000 funding. And I think there's a better reference to it. Craig, what would the better reference be? The ISL recommendations on exterior repairs or the infrastructure and engineering project of exterior repairs?
We'll come back with a good name.
What's that?
We'll come back with a good name.
Well, we need it right now for the motion. So, exterior report or repairs on the Butte Reservoir
That works.
be brought back with funding scenarios.
Funding options, yeah.
Amanda, does that make sense to you? Okay. And then, Luana, you get to read it to us again.
I'm gonna need help. So, moved by Councilor Windsor that administration bring back funding options for the exterior Butte Reservoir repair, thank you, to the February 13th regular council meeting.
Can we take the word exterior out of there?
Okay,
I don't want to be
thank you.
Reservoir repairs?
Yes, please.
Yeah, we don't want to limit it to that.
No.
We go out to the repairs.
Absolutely.
Okay, options for funding, okay.
All right. Minus the exterior word. Read it again.
Moved by Councilor Windsor that administration bring back funding options for the Butte Reservoir repair to the February 13th regular council meeting.
Thank you.
So I guess since it's my motion, can we make sure the $100,000 is in there somewhere? $100,000.
Well, is that the number that we're,
I appreciate that.
but it's the number that was identified and that we've already had in the press release, so it shouldn't change and we should have that identified.
Mhm.
I agree.
So,
I'm just trying to follow through with what we've talked about.
so that administration bring back funding options for the $100,000 for the Butte Reservoir repair
To the February
to
13th.
the February 13th.
Perfect, thank you.
Well done. I'll call the vote. All in favor? That's carried. Okay. Yep.
Just, I think too, just that one document you said that you could do, that's doable, I think we should have that done by a motion.
What is it?
Just kind of going forward, I think we should have any future requests for information just be done by motions, just so that everyone's on the same page.
I disagree that we have that motion. If someone needs to make it, they can, but I would certainly not support that. That's not in line with what councillors do, that we can ask questions anytime we like. So, I'm not trying to be, I just want us to be able to do our jobs, and it can't always be a council meeting, so if we need information before a council meeting, I think we should be able to access that according to what our roles are legislated to be. So, Councillor Moore?
Yes, I think what we settled on was production of a line-by-line, of the line-by-line budget by department, I guess it says budget by department, but budget to be generated to the December 31st, 2023 date, understanding that there will be adjustments further to the totals.
Is that a motion?
Yes. Because I think that's what you asked for, and that's what they said they could do, right?
Well, I know, but the point I'm trying to make is that I can't always wait till the next council meeting, or when is it gonna be delivered, and
I think it needs to be specific as what we're asking for here, and there's two of you that want that, so it sounds like specific direction might be helpful to know whether or not you've gotten what you asked for. Is that what you wanted?
yeah, and in fairness, during that discussion, it's not to burden anybody with extra work, it's just to get information that councillors need, and I disagree it should be motions. Of course I'll vote for the motion, but if it's defeated, then it's telling me I can't get information that I would like to have to do the budget in my way I do it. So it's 6 1, half does the other right now, I guess, because councillors are entitled to ask questions outside of a council meeting for information, and
Well, that's a document. That's a document we said we could produce. We're comfortable producing that. I guess my only is depending on the volume of questions, and sometimes the questions are in depth, and all of that puts aside other administrative work that we're doing, and that's why my preference for motions. It gives us the opportunity to advise as to which are doable and which are not, which things we have information right now for, which ones we don't. Sometimes we get questions for things we don't have, or don't have information for, or aren't able to produce it in a quick turnaround of just a couple days. And all those things, again, take us away from other things that we're doing, and it's always a juggle. What do we spend our time on? Because the more time we spend on this, the less time we have for the other things that we're doing, and that's why the preference for motion is not to try to not do something, but just also because that allows us the ability to advise as to what's working and what's not.
Councillor McCoy?
Maybe I'll ask a different question that'll give me the right answer anyways. I need this information, but I do not want to stall the finance department in creating it in the middle of their year end. And if their process is to give us a fourth quarter report, at some point, I'm willing to wait for that. The same with the line by line. If we're not discussing the budget as a whole until March or whenever, then I can wait till March for that updated line by line, because then they don't have to do it more than once. So I guess if I knew what the timeline is for us to look at the budget as a whole, that's like, everyone's thinking immediately. I'm just thinking, like, if we're gonna make decisions, I need it now. But if we're not making decisions till March, I don't need them now.
My interpretation at this point is, I know I'm certainly feeling comfortable where we're at, and that's why I've asked for the external groups to come, because I'm prepared to invite them into that talk about the operating budget. I've heard around the table that there's more interest in getting it done, so even the preliminary number we can all agree on, bring it back before the tax rate when the fourth quarter's here. I think we should just stop belaboring this, Councilor McQuaid, and I don't need the information. I'll just, I'll figure it out.
I'll withdraw my motion.
Yeah, I'll just figure it out.
Thank you.
Yep. East Reservoir financing scenarios. I think we'll wait for a motion, because I think there's some questions and comments and responses we'll need to come to the right motion. And at this point, that's why I was asking for some information, because I think, and I'll just start the conversation about the reservoir in that, for me to be able to make a decision on moving forward, what I'm understanding from council is that they're looking to have this constructed this summer, to expedite it, to get shovels in the ground, to get the work done. Am I wrong in thinking that? That we would like,
Yes.
If we can.
I'm wrong in thinking that?
Yeah.
So we're
I can explain why.
yeah, that's fine, I'll go around the table, but that was my interpretation. We'd like shovels in the ground this summer if we can expedite it and get it funded.
That's great in theory, but it has to be designed, and it has to be engineered, and then, so I'm comfortable in getting it done as fast as we possibly humanly can, but it has to go through those processes. So for any councilor here, show me your engineering degree when you say you want it in the ground by spring, and then just show us the plan on how to do that. We just need it done as fast as we can get it done, period. I can't set that timeline. There has to be designs, they have to be approved, it all has to be engineered. It's not just hiring an excavator, dumping some concrete in a hole and moving on.
And that's not my intent of that comment.
That's
Deputy
just what I'm
Mayor.
saying, no. I
No,
expect them in the ground if it's possible.
and you're right, the right wording is as soon as is possible, and yes, and of course, I think we're very clear on that around the table, that we don't do that part of the work, we provide the funding. But in providing the funding, I think right now we need some more answers before even the tenders can go out, because we can't say, oh, go do this without knowing exactly where the funding is coming from and how we're gonna manage that. Councillor McCoy?
I was confused when we discussed this at the budget meeting, when we ended. And I've tried using the long-term capital plan to come up with the $5,683,054. And I'm not sure, so could someone tell me what is in that 5.683 million? And then that's my own question.
And while he's at it, I think Craig can also just speak to kind of, we've met with ISL since the last few weeks. We've got a plan for an expedited process and a project idea for kind of some basic timeline estimates. So maybe Craig start with that, just so that everyone's aware of kind of, and this is what we're hoping to be able to achieve if everything all goes according to plan.
And in fairness to you, Craig, that's certainly, the summer months were along the lines of as fast as possible, and of course we're going to ask you for your expertise in all of this. Don't get me wrong any time about that, because of course we look to you for this project being completed and started. So go ahead, Councilor McCoy has a question, and
Yeah, thank you, and I can appreciate the interest around the project, and definitely took it on the 17th that council's interested in moving this forward as fast as possible, and so we reached out to ISL, as Ethan mentioned, to get an understanding of the expeditious cost to get it going faster. Basically, because of our relationship with ISL, we don't experience any of those kind of pressures. If we want to go faster, we'll go faster. And we don't have to, we're not looking at that premium rate where we're gonna wanna get into the ground in a month or two. That's probably not in our price tag, our price range. The other challenge there is that anything that we do before a grant notice would be at our own costs, construction-wise. So design-wise, we're fine to keep going as fast as we possibly can. We're currently sitting at 50%. We got some conversations to have about aesthetics, about what we want the building to look like. We still got some decisions to make around that and a few other factors. So, so hitting the ground or opening up ground this year, I can say is potentially possible with the 21st Street connector, but that doesn't really get us anywhere that we wouldn't be able to wait a year before we got to. If that makes sense? The reservoir wouldn't be there. We don't need 21st Street connector. We need it there before the reservoir's commissionable, but it doesn't really save us anything to start it in the ground this year other than we can say it's there. So engineering, my department is comfortable with proceeding with, in an expeditious way, the design. If we approve the project for construction tonight, as it's been presented up on the screen, what it will allow the department to do is to go to tender early in what we call an early contractor engagement. So at 50% drawings, we go out to market, we get high quality reservoir contractors, we get high quality ramming contractors for putting the pipes underneath the CP rail. We can package up the contract. We get these people into place to help us refine and improve the design over the course of this year. And then as soon as they're comfortable with moving forward to construction, with the approvals in place, we could transition very quickly as they see fit and as equipment comes available. There's only a couple of contractors that can go under CP rail main lines. So we'd have to find out where there's construction schedules hit and stuff like that. So long-winded. Yes, we can hit the ground this year. No, I don't think there's any advantage to it. Yes, I think there's an advantage to early contractor engagement, both for a spend consideration and schedule. So if we can move forward in that direction, that would be probably our best route to the soonest commissioning. So that's the first part of the question. The second part of the question, which I think was the important part for the 5.6. The 5.6 was the culmination. So last meeting, in the budget meeting, we acknowledged that we went from a $6 million build down to a $5.6 million build through the refinement of the engineer's estimate for the grant that went to AMWWP. So that 5.6 is the refined number based on design, engineering, construction, commissioning, and the whole kit and caboodle to get us the reservoir that is a completely redundant system for the butte. So that's the one other small thing that's changed from the previous reservoir. Was an 1,800 cubic meter reservoir. We're building a 2270 reservoir now. Okay, so those are the small changes that have come up over time. We originally had a $4.2 million estimate for a reservoir back in 2006. Of course, things grow in over time, and plus the size has also gotten a little bit bigger. So hopefully that captures it enough. I can get you more of a detailed number breakdown for the grant that we submitted, but I also believe I've given you the grant access document. If not, we can get that for you guys too.
Thank you. Does that answer your question?
Not really, but I think additional information would, like, I get that you say what it includes, but I couldn't line it all up in the capital plan.
It's hard to memorize as you speak, and like, it was I appreciate your response.
If I might, with the capital plan, the reason why there's a disconnect is because it was a $6 million project split between 2 years. And now we got a $5.6 million project split between the 2 years, but we haven't updated that draft plan from December.
Okay, but can I ask another clarifying question? So does this 5.6 include everything that needs to be done to complete the reservoirs, the new reservoir, east reservoir?
The facility itself, yes. Yeah.
And the connector line and everything?
No.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to find out, what is in this and what isn't there.
Well, in order to get a project cost, you'd have to take the 21st Avenue connector, the sanitary project and the $5.6 million, just as it's been presented on the RFD.
Yeah, the motions really itemize all the associated costs. You can stay there probably.
Okay.
Councillor Windsor?
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. Craig answered a couple of my questions, so I won't go over those. However, I don't think we have enough information to make a decision here. I really don't. I'm wondering where the funds are coming from for this. I don't think that I am comfortable making a motion including a grant that we have no idea whether we're going to obtain or the amount that we're going to get in that grant. I am just not comfortable making that kind of a motion. As far as the other side of it is, the water reserve, based on the information that I've gathered from our November report, there's 1.69 million available in the water reserve right now. We're going to put another 500,000 into that. That makes 2.2 million. And one of the scenarios says we're going to take 3 million, and now we're talking about this connector having to be supplied by the utility users as well. So like, I just don't think we have enough information here to make an intelligent decision about this. It talks about the connector being through MSI and LGFF funds, and I don't know what LGFF funds are available, what haven't been spoken for, and that goes for the MSI as well. Like, I just don't think there's enough information here to be making a decision like this. I would like to see some of that information come back to us to give us an idea of where we're going to be and how we're actually going to fund this and what the debenture is going to cost us in interest at 7.7 or whatever percent we're going to be paying. And I think that in order to do that in an expeditious manner, I'd like to see a special meeting called to deal with that, with this alone, just East Reservoir, and get this wrapped up and move forward.
It's a lot of stuff.
Do you have a question? Or those are just comments? Councillor Moore?
One thing that I think maybe well, it's mostly design this year. Apparently we're putting another 500,000 in water reserves. The construction, how long will it take until it's fully completed and all the invoices come in? Are we talking maybe 2 years or a year and a half? Because I know that the Bank of Canada is predicting that interest rates will be less than half by end of 2026. So there is not going to be any 7.7%. But also, I'm wondering about the amount of time that we have to be able to pull some of this together. And we do know about our LGFF and MSI for this year. Would there be some from the following year as well that is going to go toward here, so it wouldn't all be coming out now? Because I'm assuming this is going to take at least a year, am I right?
Yeah, so I'll speak to schedule first, and then I'll let Amanda take off the financing questions. But yeah, the current schedule would be to start in Q1 of 25 and complete Q1 of 26. So it'd be about a year, and give it a year and 3 months construction.
Amanda, do you want to talk about the funding? I don't know if there's questions in there, Councillor Moore, for funding.
2 years.
Sure, so between Wednesday's meeting and when I had to get this produced for the agenda by Friday, I was provided information from Craig regarding the timelines. So that's what I used to forecast the reserves and the grants available. So yes, we were looking at about 1.6 million in reserves by the end of this year. I also took a couple things, assumed that the transfer coming up in business item 9.1 was going to happen, so that adds almost about $400,000 to that reserve fund. I'm also looking at recommending a transfer from the solid waste reserve for about $200,000. So that brings us up to almost 2.3 million, depending where we are at the end of the year. And then over the next 3 years, 2024, 2025, and 2026, when the project takes place, I'm looking at adding another 400,000 per year. So that would bring me to, by the end of 2026, a reserve fund of $3.48 million. So I'm saying that we could comfortably take 3 million of that to put towards the project, and leave money in the reserve fund for other considerations. Now, all of that was before considering the Butte Reservoir Repair Project, which would take $100,000 out of that fund potentially. With the grant funding, we are sitting at about, this is from memory, but this, if I can pull up the grant document or the budget document, I think it was about over $1 million left in MSI funds, so that would be available. Our initial plan was to fund the connector with those leftover funds from MSI, and then also a little bit of LGFF funds. LGFF came in at about 820,000 for 2024, 813, and then 920 for 2025. So that is where the LGFF and MSI money would be available to fund the other portion of the, if the AMWWP grant wasn't available. So, and then in determining how much long-term debt to take, in option 1, we were looking at, I am a believer that a portion of the project should be long-term debt, so our future users can pay towards the cost of the project. So in option 1, I took 50% of what wasn't funded from AMWWP and split it between reserves and long-term debt. And then in option 2 is if we don't get the AMWWP grant, I said 1/3 of the total reservoir project should be funded from long-term debt, and then use what I could from reserves and the rest from the LGFF. Knowing that the connector project would also take grants, so that you're still funding a large portion of something related to the project from grants, which is offsetting user fees, but that's kind of where my mind was going when I was looking at how to fund this. So of course, anything, if council has a different theory in deciding what portion or what not to fund from grants versus reserves versus long-term debt, that is your prerogative, but that kind of explains my thought process. And then finally, the long-term debt, if we were to borrow from the local authorities with loan program with the government of Alberta, a 25-year loan is currently at 5%. I looked that up today, so I'm not sure what it would be in next year or the year after. But yes.
Okay, thanks, Amanda. Deputy Mayor?
So if we were to approve one of these scenarios, do we have any option 3 months from now, we find out we get the grant, we can go back in and change that so that we can get this going? I agree with Councillor Windsor, I don't want to be tied into something, but if we have an option that we can make changes 3, 4, 6 months down the road, a year down the road, then I think we need to get the RFD out there. We need to secure the contractors to get the project rolling. But I quite simply, my question is, if we choose one of these scenarios so that Craig can get this thing to market and RFDs going, can we change that up based on circumstance of the day when that day comes?
Absolutely, yes. So if the situation changes, or if the project comes back from being tendered and it's a different amount, we can bring it to council to be amended, just like any other capital budget project that we've brought for amendment. And that includes how it's funded for as well. And then before we can borrow money for the project, that has to come by way of a bylaw as well.
So, well, I think the question that I'd like to ask right now is really, Craig, you need the money for the design that you've got. You need the money to put the 21st Avenue connector in this year. And if, whatever you're doing with the 21st Avenue connector, I heard this year, I might be wrong again. But then when do the tenders needed is my question. So if we can't go ahead and say we accept the grant one, because that's only eligible for design if we're going ahead with the project before they approve or not approve it. That's what this reads, I believe. And so do we need the motion right now about the 5.6 million, or do we need the other two motions? Because those have to be done first. And then if council considers that motion be made in May, based on the response from the grant funding, then we can make a solid decision on how to go forward with the reservoir itself, and all the work around it will be done in advance of that anyway. Is there a question? There was questions in
I think so. I'll try my best to answer them. It's possible to get into the ground this year. I don't recommend that we do that. Everything I need for this year's capital project, East Reservoir included, has been approved by council already. So the design money is really all we really need for this year. If council were to choose to approve the project in principle with these numbers and a funding scheme of A, what that would allow me to do is then I have an approved budget of $5.6 million to go to tender with. And then I can get a contractor engaged. I can't engage a contractor unless I've got a budget that we can pay him with. And so, yeah, I could, but there would be some like get out of contract money that we'd have to put forward. But kinda, yeah, but it's never free.
So really we need, and what Amanda was talking about there, and I mean all the numbers in your head, Amanda, and I had a bunch of numbers in my head last night about this too, since I started reading it. We don't even need those numbers. We asked for two scenarios to come back. It gets us thinking about it, got the numbers on the paper, and now we come back in May with a solid answer from our grant application. Then we can move forward with what we absolutely need to do and how to fund it. And then we'll know the answer. And Craig, you don't need to go to those. You want it in principle approved at that number, but you don't need the solid funding because we won't have that till May. That wouldn't hold you up till May to engage.
Yeah, I'm comfortable waiting until you guys are comfortable with the information that you have in order to go forward with getting contractors involved. So for the year, design is what's on the agenda for the department on this project. It would just be other people at the table to help improve the efficiency of the delivery and the cost. And so May's not going to change things considerably. We'll just be sort of tendering into July and August kind of idea sort of thing. So, and that's okay too.
Just asking a couple of questions. Is there any circumstance under which we're not going to go ahead with the East Reservoir? Okay, so they don't.
I'm answering for everybody.
Yes, I think you can, because I think I've heard from everybody that they're very eager and this is top priority. So because we're absolutely going to do it, we haven't given administration that comfort yet in the form of any kind of motion. And that's why I think this one is so important. And if you look at the bottom one, is if we don't get the grant, the last motion is to return the East Reservoir project to council for an alternative funding scenario should the AMWWP grant be unsuccessful. So we have we've already got the alternative there. If it gets Craig out to the contractors earlier and they have that contractor that can provide some value, which he said they would, if he was able to be able to secure the right contractor the earliest possible. We're delaying it by not taking the possibility of changing it if we don't get the grant. We've got the two scenarios already. We've got the out at the bottom. Why don't we go ahead with this so they have the comfort to go ahead and get a contractor?
Well, I guess, Councillor Moore, that's what I'm asking administration. So we talked about expediting, we talked about all the motions. I would like council or administration to say, this is what we need. Like, we keep hearing that we're not the engineers, and we're not. And we need that. I'm hearing Craig's response that we make these, he moves forward, and we're ready to go. So why belabor it anymore? And I'll have one more question, and then
Mine's not a question, I just wanted to start making a motion.
have one more. Well,
Again, I'll say that I'm not comfortable making a motion about a grant that we have no idea whether we're gonna get, and citing amount of the grant that we don't know we're gonna get. Why can't we do it the other way? Why can't we accept scenario 2 and still do the last contingency, that if we are successful in the grant, then we'll make an adjustment in
well,
yeah, and
yes.
that's the
I
way I
like
would.
that. So do you want to start that?
I guess
Reverse it?
I can do that, yeah. I'd have to figure the numbers out, but okay.
Well,
I'll move to approve the East Reservoir construction for $5,683,053, funded from water reserves in the amount of $1,894,351, and water reserves in the amount of 300,000 or 3 million. Pardon me.
You said water reserves.
Did I say long-term debt? That's my apologies.
it's their option 2, as per
Option 2, sure, as per option 2.
How about that?
Yes,
And then we can put the numbers in there.
sure. And included in the 2024 capital budget.
Okay. There. That's what we should started with. I just want to, I think we've talked about it lots now. I think we've got the answer from the nods from Craig anyway. And nods mean a lot to me, so thank you for that. So that's for the construction, and Luana, you can read that back.
Actually, I don't have it up. Moved by Councilor Windsor to approve the East Reservoir construction project as per option 2. And after the numbers are put in and included in the 2024 capital budget.
I just want to clarify that it shouldn't be the project, because the project includes the connector and the sanitarium, so it needs to be just the construction of the East Reservoir, please.
East Reservoir construction, or construction of East Reservoir.
And do you need the out on there?
Construction
Well,
project.
we're gonna
do it next, okay.
We're gonna go to the,
I know Councilor McCoy wants to do the 1.5 million. We'll go there next. But we'll deal with this one first, just to get this done. And any other questions? I'm not gonna take any. I'll call the vote. All in favor? Yes, did you have a question?
Just a quick response. I've had an inquiry as of late about concern for fire protection in the interim. And I'm wondering if that can be a quick answer by our engineering department to confirm that we do have sufficient supply so we can quash this rumor that we're in trouble if we, you know what I mean?
Can we just get through these motions first, and I'll come back to that question?
Sure.
Just to get through the reservoir motions, and then we'll ask. So then we'll go to the next one for the 21st Avenue connector. Did Councilor McCoy want to make that?
Sure. So to approve the 21st Avenue Connector project construction phase for 1.5 million to be funded through MSI and LGFF grants and included in the 2024 capital budget.
Okay, any questions, comments? Call the vote, all in favor? That's carried. And who would like to make the RV sandy dump construction phase? Councilor Baswick?
You're talking about the sandy dump?
I sure am, not that I want to.
I move to approve the RV sandy dump construction phase for $100,000 to be funded through wastewater reserves and included in the 2024 capital budget.
Okay, I'll call the vote, all in favor? That's carried. Councilor Moore, do you want to make the last one, since you brought that one up?
What it is now that it's turned around. Just
To return
change
the East
from
Reservoir,
successful to
that's the one you brought up, so.
successful. Oh, are we changing it to successful?
Okay. In the event that the AMWWP grant is successful, I move to return the East Reservoir project to council for the alternate funding scenario.
Hold on. Wait till it's read back and then we'll.
It's as it is.
Did you catch that, Lorna?
Well, it's the same thing on me.
Just
That's
use
the
the
same one.
We'll just use that and switch it.
Sure.
To return East Reservoir project to council for alternate funding scenario, should the AMWWP grant be successful.
Sure, that's fine.
And it's the East Reservoir construction project? Or just construction, just like the first? So it is East Reservoir construction. We'll just make it consistent with the first motion. Call the vote, all in favor? That's carried. I thought I better get at that, Councillor Basil, you were staring me down. Rightfully so. Oh, yeah, so you can ask that question now.
Thank you. As I say, it's been referred to me that some people are concerned about sufficient water supply for the fire department in the interim while we're waiting for this new reservoir to be built. Is there any way I can get confirmation that should there be a failure, we can go mainline and there's no problem with the supply?
Craig, unless Nicole wants to answer that. You probably could.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, so as part of the 2006 ISL study, they did a water CAD map of our town, and what that entails is you take all the pipes, the sizes that we have in our streets, you put it into a fancy model, you hit a go button, and it spits out an answer. Models being models, it's kind of what the engineering profession has it available. It's not perfect, but it's what we've used for the last 20 years to sort of assess municipalities. Our municipality has a deficiency for fire flow in some corners of our community. That doesn't necessarily mean we can't fight a fire. It just means that we would have low flow at the hydrant, plus we'd need pumpers and a few other ways to get depending on the response. So it's It's not untrue. It's not catastrophic. We have the firefighting volume that we need. It's just the speed at which it would come out of a couple of hydrants. And they're in an isolated part of town, and part of the project of East Reservoir is to address that through the distribution upgrades that would come in subsequent years.
Does that answer your question?
In part, I guess, so we have selected areas perhaps that are, I guess the question is, how do you mitigate that? By calling in other people, or, I guess the bottom line is, we're not gonna have, for example, 10 gallons a minute, we're gonna have 5 gallons a minute, but we're still getting enough water to mitigate the problem.
Yes, yeah, and there's all sorts of ways the fire department works with hydrants of varying flows. They've got ability to pull. They can get, like I say, pumper trucks to come in and supplying water from other places. So there's a number of different ways that they can attack the situation. Everybody's aware of where we're at. There's no secrets in my department or the fire department. So we work closely together, and we're aware of our system.
So I'm comfortable.
Knowing you're protected, yes, 100%.
That's what I needed to hear. Thank
Okay, thanks. Deputy Mayor.
And my understanding of that issue is not as a result that our water tower is kind of coming to its end of life. That's a problem of pipes that were put in the ground, I don't know, 50 years ago, that didn't, weren't sized big enough for pressures that are required today. But this has nothing to do with, this is just an issue with piping size, not the ability to store water.
100% correct. Yeah. This is a pipe size problem, not a reservoir problem. But we have a way to address it.
Thank you.
Thanks for that, Craig. And I only have one other, and I'm going to throw it at our, I guess, to our CEO to give it to whatever department that might need to address that. We have a East Downtown Area Development Plan, and it's a bylaw, and I don't know that anything in there might need to be rezoned, looked at, whatever it might be. But it's a 2011-11, it was brought to my attention, and I just want to make sure, like, we're looking at everything to do with this whole thing and on the east side of the tracks, and if there's something that needs to be adjusted in there, that would have to be dealt with too. So you can't have my copy, it's on the downloads and documents page. So just throwing that out there for having all the bases covered. And we can say that we go forward with, where are we? Bylaws and policies, CS 001-24, financial assistance for athletic excellence, and I don't know who's on, are you the chair? I'm trying to remember that. PCSU. Okay, go ahead. This is your committee that is bringing this forward.
So the Policy and Governance Committee was looking at policy CS 001-24, and we want to bring forward some recommendations on the financial assistance for athletes, or athletic excellence. Following recommendations, we're moving the policy, or we're recommending that we move the policy placement from council to community services to better direct applications as they are submitted, and this requires a new policy number. We're revising the policy name to financial assistance for athletic excellence to better describe the intent of this program. The addition of clause 1.1, which now directs applicants to the Community Services Department for review and presentation to Council. Decisions on funding remain with Council. Updates to 1.4, increase the maximum grant value from $1,500 to $2,000. which is the full value of the funding available. That's all we have left in the legacy fund. It's available through this program. Additionally, the wording at council's discretion was added to the same clause, giving council the option to fund an application at a different value if they see fit. The addition of clause 1.14 will see the policy rescinded once council has fully distributed the $2,000 reserve for this program. Minor changes to the accompanying application form will be in line with this new policy name and number, as well as the addition of date and location of the event or that the applicant would be attending. Through consensus, the Policy Governance Committee are recommending these updates for council's approval.
Thank you for that. Oh, yeah, were you doing the motion, or did you want, you had a question?
Question and perhaps a motion.
Oh, but you should make the motion, and then you might have to ask for an amendment. Because the chair always does the motion from our historical.
Can I speak first?
Sure. Okay. If you are okay with that.
Yes.
Just being
So, this council has two members that weren't here in 2020. So I think it's important to clarify what was originally intended and confirm whether this council has a different perspective. When Chris Aitchison proposed spreading these funds out to the communities within Mountain View County, that was the legacy of the 1983 Alberta Summer Games. He said the fund, and I'm quoting, "The fund was designed to assist and promote the development of sports and arts at the elite level in the district. Its intent was for the principal amounts established in the fund to generate enough interest annually to provide grant opportunities for residents and or nonprofit organizations to access in order to assist highly talented athletes or artists develop." Director of Legislative Service Chris Aitchison told council. The proposed self-distrusting sports event funding policy does not provide the continuing grant opportunity to assist highly trained athletes to develop as was envisioned, nor does the larger 15,000 plus allocation to an interior art wall at the complex. I move that this policy be tabled to a future meeting when this council may be able to consider
Councillor Moore, I'm not going to accept that motion
whether or
because
I'm still
he was
speaking.
making the motion on the
I'm still
item.
speaking.
I know you are, but there's a motion in
To
there.
be able to consider what, he can consider what I am
But you're
proposing.
making a motion,
When,
and the
To
chair was going to
consider-
make the motion.
I would like this council to be able to consider whether this or any of the Summer Games legacy funds should be directed elsewhere, perhaps to the East Reservoir, since they're not doing what they were intended for anyway.
The intent of this whole direction to PGC was to deal with what they were supposed to deal with,
The
and that's the whole, and they've done that, so
And they made it self-destruct, which was not
but that's,
ever what it was
but
supposed
that
to
can
be.
be shown in your vote about the motion that the chair was supposed to make. So when the motion's made, then that conversation should have happened, that you had there. And we've always let the chair make the motion, and then you can show in your vote if you're against it, or you can have the discussion while the motion, after the motion's made. So that's been our process with committees, and that's the respectful process that we've set at the table here.
Motions
And
is
I'm-
not debatable.
But you have the motion there to make based on what your committee did. And
Well, our committee was tasked with dealing
Yes.
with a $2,000 fund that's sitting there, and that's what we based it on, not anything else. There's
Right.
$2,000 left in there. It doesn't generate enough interest to pay anyone.
No.
So that's why we've made these recommendations. The other, excuse me, the other money that you're talking about would be something that would need to be sent back to policy and governance to look at, that $15,000 or whatever. But that's not this. This is a $2,000 fund that's sitting there, and these are our recommendations as to what to do with it.
I'll let you make that motion, because that
Well, did
is,
you make a motion?
I asked for a motion to table it because.
So then we would have to defeat that first, or vote in favor of it, whatever.
Well, the whole conversation though, I was gonna let you make the motion, Councilor Moore was just gonna speak to it, and then she put a motion in there, and I don't think that's fair to the committee. That isn't how we have done all these motions, so Councilor McCoy or Moore could have voted against your motion to show that, and if there was support for the majority to disregard your motion, then it would have gone back, the conversation would have been had there. And that is our process for committees, and to take away the motion from the chair is not what I prefer to do, because we've set that process here in that respect of our committee work. So,
I'm not trying to supersede him. I'm okay to do it either way, because I think it's gonna end up the same way no matter what. It's just that it might have done what it was supposed to do if we hadn't split it, and none of the funds have been expended.
but the last council made those motions and moved it forward, so there was no motion here ever. It went to PGC, they've done the job they were asked to do, and if there's another, like I said, we show it in our vote, and if you want to make the motion, I would accept
No,
it.
First a motion was made, so Councilor Moore would either have to withdraw that, or it would have to be defeated.
Because I don't want to make this another big conversation.
Okay, then I would make the motion to approve policy CS 001-24, financial assistance for athletic excellence as presented, and rescind policy COUN 009-22, financial assistance for recognition of athletic achievement.
All right, is there any other discussion on this? I'll call the vote then, all in favor? Opposed? That's carried.
I got another one.
Let me catch up here. Item 8.2, council remuneration policy. Doesn't have a number, is it supposed to? Maybe not. 004 dash. Okay. I just did not read enough. But go ahead. Chairperson.
Okay, again, policy and governance looked at COUN 004-22, council remuneration. The committee was presented with a revised policy and updated Appendix B in their January 10th, 2024 meeting. Other changes to the policy were discussed and noted in red in the attached draft, which we can certainly go through if we need to. These changes include, in Section 5, providing clarification on submission and approval of council remuneration forms, and the addition of Section 7, council reports. Appendix A has changed to state that mileage rate is at the current CRA rate and not to have any costs listed in the table. So that was just easier for administration, whatever the current rate is, that's what they put in. Appendix B has revisions noted in red. The committee is recommending council approve policy COUN 006-24. So I would move to approve policy COUN 006-24, council remuneration as presented, and to rescind policy COUN 006-21.
Thank you for that. Any questions or comments on that? Oh,
There's a slight error. It's supposed to be COUN 004, not 006. That's the next one. That was an error on the RFP.
Okay, I would amend my, whatever I said to indicate that.
we're at COUN 006-24.
It's 004.
Okay. -24.
Mayor Hunter, in the markup copy, it identifies it correctly.
Yes, it does. Councilor Moore?
Yes, I don't have any problem with the policy itself, altogether, good work, but I'm wondering in Appendix B, now that's not part of the policy because it says end of policy. So I certainly can vote for the policy, but I'm wondering where it talks about meetings with resident or business owner, and it says claimable. I think that the extra $14,000 that council gets is to meet with residents and business owners on a regular basis all over town, and same with you. And I don't expect anybody should ever claim a meeting with a resident or business owner unless it's authorized by council. Do you agree? Could we remove that?
Where's, I'm just not sure, I don't have,
Right there, about 6 feet from the bottom.
and is it up here? Okay. I know that was, okay, Counselor Moore? Counselor, well, no, what Counselor, I think Counselor Windsor wants to speak to that because you're not on that committee, but you have, oh, you are on that committee. Sorry, go ahead. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor Hunter, and I direct Councillor Moore to look at the top line where it says types of claimable meetings as approved by motion of council.
Okay,
And so that includes all of these items that are below that unless it's a motion of council, they're not claimable.
okay, does that answer your question and help?
So,
I do agree though, because it used to be non-claim, it was in the non-claimable list, but now it's claimable.
Motion of council.
Okay, and then Deputy Mayor, and then,
so, yeah, what in fact we're saying is that if someone were directed by council to meet with a business owner or to meet with a resident, and it was a motion of council, they could claim that. But just to go meet with business owners and residents is not claimable. You can't just go into the grocery store, talk to someone about the fire hydrant flow and claim it. It has to be, you have to be directed by council to be able to claim it.
Okay, okay, so it says trade shows, and I'm assuming if you're scheduled and you're booked in by council, that, again, some of us go to openings and others don't, and we don't claim them, of course we don't. But
So you still wouldn't?
okay, I think it's still an area that I would rather not see in there.
well, I hope, I mean, the hope is that we don't have to deal with that kind of motion,
I would.
because we might have to say no. Counselor Windsor.
Essentially, what we tried to do in this was to simplify it, because after a whole bunch of different things that said unclaimable in the right-hand column there, the classification column, we had in the brackets, unless by motion of council. And so rather than having that clause in every line all the way down, we just put it right at the top and said by motion of council.
Okay,
So if it isn't by motion of council, it's not claimable.
could we say specific motion of council? Because it might be, I'm hoping it would never get to be a generalized thing.
By specific motion of council?
Yeah, I'm thinking that might help.
I think if it may, I'm not averse to a small,
It would be specific from council.
so Deputy Mayor and then Councilor McCoy.
The other thing that this helps, the administrative people that are doing the expense claims, if they don't have a motion of council and somebody's claiming it, they don't have to reach out and find out if it was claimable or not. It's not. So it makes their job easier. And did we address in here the submission, because our payroll has switched and we now have to submit our expense claims by the first Monday of each month, or it potentially won't get paid that month. Third day. Okay. We had too many days floating around in that meeting. So the third day of the beginning of the month. And then obviously it would just be handed off until the next month, is when it would be paid. So it's just getting these expense forms in a timely fashion.
Okay, and Councillor McCoy?
I have similar concerns about the line that you added for conferences, because currently, the lovely Lou sends us an invite and, or says this is coming up, who's interested, and we tell her we're interested, and we're given a certain amount of money in our budget to do professional development. Now you're saying if I want to go do a one-day course, I have to get a resolution of council to do that? Because we don't currently do that.
No, we're not saying that. We're saying that if you do that, you have to submit with your expense claim your notes, your report.
If you read the top, it says types of claimable meetings as approved by motion of council.
Yep.
And you've got conferences there, and they're claimable. And right now, we don't expect council to be approving everyone's professional development.
Is professional development on
Yes, online.
Ethan?
That's because the intent again is the motion that approves basically your budget, your professional development money. That's the motion that authorizes you to take that professional development to go to conferences. Similar with committee meetings, they don't need to come for each one because the motion appointing you to that committee is the motion authorizing that activity.
It's the same for everybody. So I'm okay with that specific change. But AUMA and FCM and those things we don't have to get permission for those.
No.
According to this.
No, we don't.
It's because your professional development is what gives you permission.
Or in budget.
Because the budget's approved by motion, so the budget that's approved by motion gives you professional development permission.
Okay.
Well, we'll try it out, Council McCoy, and see how it works. We'll come back if we don't like it. How's that? Do you want specific in there? Is that, and then we can settle that up, or is this good?
I'm okay. because,
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion to accept this as presented. I'll call the vote, all in favor? That's carried. Are you up again?
I am.
Council proclamation policy,
Probably getting sick of me. Okay, policy and governance met to discuss policy COUN 006-21 at their January 10th meeting. Committee made one revision, adding section 2.3 to provide the ability to make a special local recognition because we feel that that's important, and my motion would be to approve proclamation policy COUN 006-24 as presented and rescind policy COUN 006-21.
Any comments on that? Call the vote then, all in favor? That's carried. And we have item 8.4, bylaw 2024-01, portion of Southwest 18-32-1-5 to amend land use bylaw 2019-01. Sure.
No.
Go ahead.
Well, I think Tracy and Leanne is there anything to add? It's very well laid out in your document, so who would like to make the motion? Councillor Moore?
I move that council grant first reading of bylaw 2024-01, portion of Southwest 1831-25, amending the land use bylaw 2019-01.
Any questions? Councillor Windsor?
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. From a previous meeting, there was an indication that there was a stormwater main that went through this piece of property. And my understanding was that it was north to south. And I guess the first question is that inaccurate? And secondly, where is the stormwater main through this piece of property?
Thank you for the question. So looking at the map, so it'd be on the north side of the coulee, and just to the west of the cul-de-sac bulbs, the two cul-de-sac bulbs on the north side. No, a little further. There you go. So the storm pipe parallels the CP rail track right away, and you are correct. It travels from north to south, and it releases into the coulee through its outfall. Oh, I got a pointer. Hey, look at me go. Thanks, Councillor Baswick. This is awesome. So the storm line runs down this way, and it's just in its final stages of being registered with land titles.
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. So if it runs north and south, and that was preventing development before, I'm wondering why we have development right over top of it now that's acceptable.
I'll take that one. Thank you, Councilor, for the question. It was not ever preventing development before. The problem with it was the disagreement at the time about whether or not the developer wanted those pipes there. But we've now come to an agreement, and those pipes are now protected by a right-of-way agreement that the owner has now signed and agreed to have those pipes there. So the problem before wasn't that it interfered with development. The problem was the pipes themselves being there without a protected instrument to protect them being there, giving us right to have our pipes there. And they were put there a long time ago.
Yeah, that water.
Who put that line up there that we just saw? Was that can we have that again? While you ask another question?
So if it's a right-of-way, then I guess I'm wondering why it's not marked as a right-of-way. There are other right-of-ways that are marked on there, so I'm wondering why that one isn't marked as a right-of-way. Because all you've got is CPR right-of-way there, marked out in white, and inside the yellow where this pipeline, this stormwater main goes, if it's in a right-of-way, I guess I'm wondering why it's not marked as a right-of-way.
Answer that.
I'll take a kick at that one. So as I mentioned, it's still sort of in the last sort of stages of being registered with land titles. The applicant knows it's there, which is part of the reason why the subdivision layout up here has been modified, which is part of the reason why the area structure plan amendment is in front of us. It's land use and change, and they're modifying sort of the layout of this section here. For first reading, we're sort of looking direction from council. Is this in principle okay with you? We'll get real technical with them about how to get the lines everywhere and to make sure that they're showing lot dimensions and things like that as we move forward with the design. But really we're looking for principal direction from you. Are you okay with the R3 being applied here and in this sort of layout and fashion? But we'll get to those particulars for sure.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Anything else? So we have a motion. I didn't write down who made it. Councilor Moore did. A motion for first reading to this bylaw 2024-01, amending the land use bylaw 2019-01. Call the vote. All in favor? That's carried. Go ahead.
And move that council set February 27th, 2024 as the public hearing for bylaw 2024-01.
Is everybody going to be here? I'll call the vote. All in favor? That's carried. All right, we have item 7.5, bylaw 2024-02, amending Fox Hollow area structure plan. What? Yes, thank you. Item 8.5.
Oh, he wants me to.
You want to make that motion?
I move that council grant first reading to bylaw 2024-02, amending Fox Hollow area structure plan.
Okay, are there any questions or comments on this? You guys, yeah? I'll call the vote. All in favor? That's carried. If you, no.
No, don't say that.
No. I think it's at the end of all the readings.
Okay.
Go ahead, Councillor Moore.
And I move that council set February 27th, 2024 as public hearing for bylaw 2024-02.
Okay, questions? Call the vote. All in favor? That's carried. It is, what you mean to say is this is good news to see Fox Hollow moving forward here. Yeah. And we have item on business now. Moving right along. Item 9.1, RCMP reserves, and I believe Councillor Moore is the chair of that.
And I'm excited about this one. And I think.
Thank you for, I thought you had to stay though. They're staying, they are, okay. So long. Sorry, Councillor Moore, go ahead.
That's okay. I'm excited about this one, and I think council will be too. So there was a resolution passed in 2019 putting money into a budget to smooth our transition to RCMP funding. Money has continued to go in there, and of course we pay about the same amount with a little bit of increase all the time now. So the reason for it doesn't exist anymore, but we still have adjustments at the end of the year for whatever overtime, whatever kind of thing. And in this case, we have 44,000 and change that is being billed at year end. One of those adjustments that goes on the end of our year end that makes it complicated, 44,843.67. And so we want to leave that in there, and another 50,000 for the same thing for the following year. So other than keeping that 94,843.67 in there, we have money that we can transfer. So we looked at the parking lot expansion project, and there was a question about where to get the extra 3,127. So it was considered at the meeting that the RCMP contract policing reserve may be available due to it being related to the RCMP detachment, so that we could take that out of there as well. So our motion is going to allow for those motions, are going to allow for those things. And the wonderful thing is that at the end, we have $367,600 about to transfer to the Water Infrastructure Reserve Fund for the purpose of helping to fund the East Reservoir project, should council approve this. So excitedly, I will say the first motion. I move that council approve funding the overreach of $3,127 on the RCMP detachment parking lot expansion project from the RCMP contract policing reserve.
All right, are there questions on that? I'll call the vote. All in favor? That's carried.
And I move to approve, that council approve maintaining a current balance of $94,843.67, which includes $44,843.67 for the outstanding retro pay invoice due March 31st, 2025 in the RCMP contract policing reserve.
Questions? Councilor Windsor?
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. being on that committee, I am kind of familiar with the discussion that went on with regard to this, but I'm still having a little difficulty trying to qualify in my mind why we need to leave $50,000 in that reserve. I don't think that there's any need to leave $50,000 in there, that if there is a RCMP retro pay that's required in the future, that should be reflected in the operating budget to the taxpayers so they know what if they're paying for, what expense they're paying for, and that it is the RCMP that are causing that. I would suggest that this be, I would support having it retain $44,000 in order to do the retro pay payout, and that the next motion be altered to transfer $417,000 to our East Reservoir.
Do you want to respond to that?
I would like Amanda to follow up, but it is because we're expecting another contract. There will be adjustments and they may not be, anyway, I'll let Amanda explain it.
Thank you. This would be council's decision. If you want, I would expect in the future that there's gonna be retro pay adjustments that come up. So that's all this was, is to keep funds in place for if there was a future invoice. Alternatively, if you account for that in the operating budget in the year that you're invoiced for it, that is another way to handle it as well. So it just depends how council wants to deal with those future costs.
Councillor Baswick?
Thank you, Mayor. The way I look at it is the revenue goes to reserve. We can withdraw that from reserve at any time, so there's no issue with prolonging this. You know, when we got to put it in reserve, later if we need it, we can pull it out of reserve. It's pretty simple. Thank you.
When the conversation ever since the police, like we went into contract, we had a good idea there initially, we thought, but what we were doing was helping the federal government hide behind our reserve. And so that's what brought me to bring it back so that we could deal with this reserve and do something useful with it besides protect the federal government from impacting our budget every year. So they impact our budget every year with the increases to the RCMP, and I don't begrudge them those. I mean, RCMP are valuable and they're worth that. But, it's fair that this year we don't spring it on our residents, but I think our residents, like our operational budget is being affected by things that we can't control. And when we can't control them, why do we protect them as a federal government? And the invoice and the contract we have to be in. So what I'm after with all this is that we somehow get this reserve closed, and that the same thing our neighbors do is they send out notices as to how much policing is, and that it is really not in our control how much policing costs us. And we get an invoice every year, and then they go to negotiate, and by April or May they have more money they want, and then our budget's impacted again. So I think the true impact has to be on the federal government and the necessity for these police agreements, and that we don't impact our operational budgets from that uncontrollable cost that we just don't have a say in. So as long as it gets closed, that would be my ultimate goal, because we don't do that anymore. So if we don't put reserves over, like we're gonna rescind are we not rescinding that motion?
We need the money there for the invoice we already have.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I see that. That's, I think, what I said is as long as I'd like to see the extra 50 go to the reservoir as well, but you guys had conversation about that, I'm sure. But as long as it gets closed and we don't, and I think that the other motion will have to be rescinded, that 455.19, I think it is, Amanda. 455. Because we're not going to be transferring anymore, right? Well, I don't think we are.
Can I
Yeah, that's
comment on that? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's quite a big resolution with other budget items listed, bullet pointed in it, so we'd have to look at how do you amend, maybe you amend it? I'm not sure.
Yeah, we'll have to come back with it, but either way, is the ultimate intent to close this reserve? And that amount of money is just, it's done then, and then did the committee discuss that? Because we'll have to bring that motion back and
No,
amend it or whatever.
That wasn't what the committee agreed on. Basically, the committee agreed on keeping 50,000 in the operating reserve for our CMP. So if council wants to eliminate the reserve altogether, what I would suggest is moving even the 44,843 into a different reserve fund to pay for that. And then you would close that reserve, so there's no confusion in the future.
And that's, once the 50,000 is gone, it's done anyway, right, that reserve?
Well,
You know what
no,
I'm
because
saying?
there was gonna be 94,000, 50 of it to stay
Yeah.
in case there's future invoices, but to be replenished over
Oh.
time. So it wasn't, that was my understanding, but.
Is that what your intent was?
That's what she recommended.
Okay.
I think part of it is because it comes outside the budget process and the invoices are not predetermined, I don't think. But she needs to pay them.
Yeah. But it's the federal government contract
Yes.
impacting our
But
budget.
any
averages.
adjustment they make is going to make one of these
Yeah.
happen. And Deputy Mayor's head.
Yes, he has been, but I'm just trying to finish this line of thought, because my line of thought is that this reserve will be closed when this $94,000 is done.
We
And,
could do that anytime.
yeah, and then bring that other motion back. So go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
So I don't disagree with anything that's been said about protecting the federal government from costs that we can't control. However, I do want to protect our citizens from an additional 1 or 2% tax increase in the event that we get another retroactive pay. So I'm in favor of keeping some money aside. We can certainly make a statement that we're spending it because we just got hit with another bill. But it stops our operating budget from absorbing that additional $40,000 or $50,000 in the future, if it gets there. I think we need to keep some money in that reserve. So I have no problem moving all of it this year, the 417, if there's still replenishment in it, and we start to build towards that again. But I don't want to go into, or the next council, or whenever the contract is up, go into a budget meeting with a $50,000 or $60,000 amount of money that they have to pay, and there's no reserve to pay it. There's only one way to get it.
And just on that, then, to bring back that motion, but also I think we can be clear that there's gonna be union negotiations every year, every two, and there always will be. So that's a consideration as well. So would it solve it if this motion got voted on and then bring back that other RCMP motion? Because we always want to top up what we're supposed to be. It has something to do with topping up what the next year's increase will be, is what the motion says. So we can bring that back and just address it again too. Councillor Windsor?
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. So I'm going to look at this from a little different point of view, and that is that we can either keep the $50,000 in that account for a future day that might come, or we can actually reduce the payments by putting it into the East Reserve project right now for our residents.
We got a debate going
No,
on.
it's not a debate.
Go ahead. I'm fine with
As
that.
I said, I have no problem putting it in
Yeah.
there. I just want it replenished each year through our operating budget, which is what we're doing now. I don't want to change that. So in the event that we have another $44,000 retroactive pay bill, that we're not then going and adding that to that year's tax bill, increasing the taxes. I think we're far better or far more prudent to save that money and have it there. And if it's just a fact that it is a a bill that the government sends us and we have no control over it, I'd still rather pay it than go to the citizens and say, we gotta raise your taxes 1% to cover this cost. Let's just reserve that money.
Okay, the motion stands, and I'm going to call the vote on the motion that Councillor Moore just read, because it's too long, but it's about, it's the current balance of $94,843, and I'll call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried.
And now my favorite one. I move that council approve reallocating the remaining funds, approximately $367,600 to the Water Infrastructure Reserve Fund for the purpose of helping to fund the East Reservoir project.
All right, any comments? Call the vote, all in favor? That's carried. And then can we have a motion to bring back that motion to look at it and see what we can do about it? Because if the top up might be.
Okay, and what do we call that?
Well, it's motion 455-19, I believe, isn't it, Amanda? Or 455-18? 19. Ethan?
Motions in and of themselves by their nature have an updating quality, so you could even do a motion that says that to no longer continually fund something to that effect. You wouldn't even have to specifically cite it, since it's not a bylaw, it's a motion, and so motions by their nature are updating.
But we can bring it back so we know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Like, I think we all want to see it, and then bring it back to revisit the allocation of funds annually. How's that?
Okay, I move that motion 455-19 be brought back to council to review the allocation of funds annually. RCMP.
I like that, thank you. Any other comments? Call the vote, all in favor? That's carried. Item 9.2, enhancement to resolution 558-23, staff travel. Councillor Bazard?
I can make that motion.
Okay, I'd like to, I have some. I think we would do well going forward on administration and council to refer to the policies we have in place, because they'll protect us all the time. So, travel and expense guidelines policy number FIN 003-22 talks about all of this stuff. I think I would rather see that this policy goes to the PGC to line it up with anything that's we've had done or going forward to do, and because if we're not following our own policy, I don't think that's a good look. And we do have a policy already on travel and expense, and we just have to follow that. So I would like to see that this be addressed by PGC according to the travel and expense policy, and then it's all flushed out, it's all dealt with. But there's a motion on the table, and oh, I thought Councillor Bazard was gonna. Sorry, yes. So could we just send it to PGC and have them follow our policy?
I don't know, so how can you make?
Does this follow our policy? Does the last one follow our policy? And I wouldn't.
Well, since this is on the agenda, but you have introduced something different.
No, well, it's not different. It is different, but if it's all about our policy, and we have a travel and expense policy, so why are we making things outside of the policy?
So then
is all I'm saying.
Then we should still go ahead and rescind this, so we can, and then refer it to the policy.
No, well, because that might be in the policy, is what I'm saying. Like both of these might be in the policy, but how will we?
Well, we need this vote now.
refer to whatever policy that is.
Policy governance.
Right.
Yeah, just refer, like we want this whole issue referred to travel expense guidelines policy to going forward, that we have the right information and the right responses so that we are following our own policy. And I guess that would be the motion at council's discretion to send both of these to PGC and prioritize it.
But,
Go ahead.
It was just brought up though that we have a policy. So we've now written one over a policy. We need to rescind that and follow the policy that's in place until we review that and make the corrective changes. That would be the correct course of action, in my opinion.
I would like to see policy abided by according to our travel and expenses abided by according to our policy. And I mean, there's a few other things in there too that we can pull out once you start going through it that we're not following. So someone can make, Councillor Bowser wanted to make that first motion, but I'd like a follow-up motion to send this to PGC to send it to PGC to start applying our travel expense and make sure everybody has that copy. Staff, management, council, everybody, so that they know where they are. Go ahead, Councillor Bowser. Because you're going to make this motion and say, and send it to the Policy and Governance Committee.
Do you want to make the motion?
I can, but I'll let you.
Thank you.
Since you had your hand up.
I'd like to move to rescind RES 558-23, moved by Councillor Windsor, that any travel expenses for travel over 300 kilometers one way to be presented to council for approval by motion of council effective immediately. You want me also include and refer travel and expense, the current, or the
Policy FIN 003-22.
Shouldn't they be separate?
Yes.
So.
Yeah, so we can vote on that one.
yeah, I see, but I'll deal with this and then let someone make the next motion.
That's fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Oh,
You made
thanks.
them already.
I get so confused sometimes because there's so much talking. From me too, but I will call the vote, but I want to just say that I'll support this because in here too, it talks about unapproved budgeted items, and that's important in some of this conversation, that unbudgeted travel expenses can't be approved. So we have to start being a little more stringent and tight on what is approved and what isn't approved in our budgets so that unexpected things like this don't come up. And anyway, I'll call the vote. All in favor? That's carried. And then send this, who's going to make that motion? Send this to PGC. I think it's a priority because it's got to do with our budget too.
I move the council send FIN 003-22 to the Policy Governance Committee for review and possible recommendations.
And as a priority. Just because it's budget time and this
Oh,
is
as a
relative.
priority.
Yeah. And you capture the name of the travel and expense guidelines? You'll capture that in there? And read it back?
Well, to send travel and expense policy FIN 003. Is there guidelines in addition to that policy?
Travel and expense guidelines policy, FIN 003-22, to PGC as a priority. You're gonna have a whole bunch more work with all the motions coming up. I will call the vote. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, we have, Item 9.3, October 13th, 2020, RFD Human Resource Authority. Sure.
I move the council accept the October 13th, 2020 RFD regarding Human Resource Authority as information and refer it to the Policy and Governance Committee.
All right, any comments? Call the vote. Oh, you had a comment?
Comment.
And this involves,
I don't want any paperwork handed out.
okay, then this is part 6 of the MGA 201. It says council must not exercise power or function or perform a duty.
Microphone, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is MGA Part 6, Municipal Organization and Administration, Council's principal role in municipal organization, 201-2. Council must not exercise a power or function or perform a duty that is by this or another enactment or bylaw specifically assigned to the chief administrative officer or designated officer. I believe that our prior motion covered our ability of our chief administrative officer to manage his own staff. And I do agree that it's important for us to see this policy, but every governance manual, every book that's ever been written says nose in, which is what we're doing by looking at this, fingers out. If we send it to a committee, we're getting our fingers in there, and I'm going to ask for a recorded vote. And if this is what Chestermere is being told, that they interfered in administrative functions, and I would not want to be on the wrong side of this vote if inspection came here. So I'm going to be voting no, and I'm asking for a recorded vote. And this is very clear that we should not be doing this.
Other comments? Section 201. 1. The council is responsible for developing and evaluating the policies and programs of the municipalities. That is our job. And so I'm happy to vote in favor of sending it to the PGC. That doesn't scare me at all, because council's job is policy. Framework and protocol is out. There's nothing in that whole 2020 motion that says we've transferred policy to our CAO. We don't do a CAO's job, and a CAO doesn't do our job. So that's where the MGA clearly outlines that council's job is creating policy and programs. So,
if I could just respond to that, every one of those talks about is looking at the 30,000 foot level, about the overall framework, not about going in and managing a policy about staff and for staff. We manage our own policy and the overall framework for the municipality. And this is crossing the line.
Deputy Mayor?
Oh, sorry, I left my mic on. You'll be happy, John. I didn't shut it off. Yeah, this one I'm really torn on, because I don't believe that we write human resource policy. I believe that we can look at the policy, we can review the policy, but I don't believe that we write it. We do write policy. We are not managers. We direct by policy, but I don't think we write a policy regarding human resources. That's my concern with this. I have no problem with the policy and governance looking at it, but I do have a problem with us trying to become human resource people, and I won't do that in the committee, but it can go there to be looked at, certainly.
Councilor McCoy?
If I go back to the October 13th, 2020, and see what the motion was, if it isn't policy that council's used to look after, why did this motion have to be made in the first place?
Right.
It used to be looked after by council. And so I don't understand what the fear is, or the fear mongering kind of going on about looking at a document that used to be within the scope of councillors. It was when I was on council between 2013 and 2017. I guess you guys made a different decision, but I don't think that decision is illegal if you return it back, as long as you don't stick your fingers in there and start manipulating things. I think it's our policy to make changes, and at the recommendation of the CAO.
Okay, so thanks for that. There is a motion to send it to PGC. And PGC can come back with whatever discussions they've had and recommendations. So I will call the vote as read. All in favor? Opposed? So just for clarity as well on this motion, we haven't given up.
Well, it's probably
You may have become unplugged here.
he's wiggling his
I'm still here. Come back on? Yep.
Okay. Fixed it.
Did fix mine, the lights.
There's something Oh, there is. Hang on.
Yeah, mine's not working
They got labeled.
Maybe it should be under the desk.
Do we have an engineer here? It should be good now. I rewired it quick.
No, mine is working. May I ask a question here? So I don't understand why we're defeating, or why we want to defeat a motion that all it is allowing us to ensure that this policy is, that we're doing good governance. And if we're not looking after this policy, I think that our governance is flawed.
Deputy Mayor?
I'll respond to that, because what I heard from this table was we had the right to look at it and make changes. And I'm not prepared to do that. I'm prepared to look at it. If you want to say that's not good governance, I'm sorry. It's not management that we do.
So I'm going to ask for a second motion then, and I'll just read this in here. It says here, we've taken no rights, we've taken nothing away from the CO bylaw by saying the framework and protocol is part of this, and that hasn't changed. There's nothing that says that policy isn't council's, because that's the wording of the motion on in 2020 did not indicate anything about taking policy away from council. So in here it says, as noted, these have previously been approved by council. Therefore, to correct this framework, we are recommending that all staff framework, and that's not the sentence I was going to read. The CEO will keep council updated on internal staffing directives. So the last time we saw a personnel policy or directives was in 2019. So the motion I would ask for is to have council, have administration bring updates anytime the HR policy is changed, because we haven't seen a change since 2019, and the conversation started because of a change in the policy that created a great big conversation. So council is responsible for service delivery to our community and how our public service presents to our community, and that is the HR presentation of our all we do in all our jobs. So I'll ask for that motion that directs administration to keep council updated on internal staffing directives as they happen.
Good with them.
Would you like to make that then?
Sure. I move that council direct administration to update us when I don't know how you word that, when policy is outdated.
It's not policy, it can't be policy, it's framework and protocols. There's no policy word in there.
Well, I don't want to be updated when they put in new lights.
Well, use the words of the motion, framework and protocols.
Or internal staffing.
This motion says framework, and so I'm asking for this motion to ask direct administration to keep council updated when HR 004 framework and protocols.
No, HR 004 it's a human resource policy.
Right.
So if the human resource policy is updated, I would move that we see the update,
Thank you, that's fine too.
if that works.
And, so say that again?
I move that
Sorry.
the council directs administration to update council when when policy is updated, that we, I don't know how you word that. When they update a policy,
When HR 004
HR 004
has changes and
has
updates.
changes or updates that were
That's,
updated on it.
Councillor McCoy?
I just have a couple of questions. It's probably going to require an answer from the CAO. Like, when were all these changes made? And is this document available for the staff to see on any given day?
Yes, so majority of these changes were made around the time of that year there, and a little bit thereafter as well as the needs arose. And yes, this is something that's given to a new staff member when they start, as well as it's available to all staff on an ongoing basis.
Thank you.
Anything else? Call the vote then, all in favor? That's carried. Opposed? That's carried. Okay, we have item 9.5, HR 007 hiring policy. Motion? Councillor McCoy?
Sorry, to refer HR 007 hiring policy to the Policy and Governance Committee for review.
Comments or questions? Call the vote, all in favor? That's carried. Opposed? That's carried.
You want that?
Just throw it in there.
I do.
That probably don't beat you. Okay, 9.6, current organizational chart. Sure.
Okay, move that council accept the organizational chart as information.
So do we, any comments or questions on the chart? So I just have a
I have a
question.
question.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Councilor
Sorry.
McCoy.
I'm just curious, because we've been told frequently lately that we only have 40 employees. So when I add this up, it doesn't add to 40. So I know some of these are part-time employees, but could administration tell us what the total FTE is? Like, so a PTE could be 1 hour of a year or whatever, right? But is there a formula that will tell us exactly how many FTEs we have the equivalent of?
take a minute to get, but we can.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I don't recall ever, and I'm not sure, maybe it was from something else, but I don't recall ever saying it was exactly 40.
It wasn't me.
Okay.
Can I just say where that might come from?
Sure.
Okay, the statistics on municipal financial information system list the number of full-time FTEs at the end of each year, and ours shows as 41 at the end of 2022. And so that would have been a count at that period, that it's at one point in time, December 31st, 2022. They all report, all municipalities do, and ours shows as 41 at that point, so that could have come from there.
Okay, thanks.
So the number we have right now from the software that we have, but it's an accumulation of FTEs, but also it's mashing all the peak part-times based on whatever portion and percentage they are, all into one number. And it's giving us 67.54.
Thank you.
It's only FTEs that are reported on the government.
Yeah, not the part-times that are
No
full-time,
part-time or seasonal.
but the
at
two of them
all.
are full-time equivalent or whatever, how they added up.
Yeah.
That isn't there.
Sorry, 66.55.
I understand.
Okay.
Jesus,
And I just have a question about the structure or chart, in that it was revised in 2022, and I believe that's when we were presented with this in July 2022, and then I'm just wondering when this new chart is effective, because at the time we had a public works foreman, and now we have a manager of operations and a foreman. We had I don't see where the asset manager was, but now we have a, I'm trying to find all the changes here that I did have wrote down. Oh, sorry,
Yeah, this
capital
is,
asset accountant that was an asset manager, and the levels of management are increased. So I'm just wondering, like, with this new chart and comparing it to the budget, since we haven't seen this new chart,
well, that's not
when was it
actually-
implemented?
Yeah, that's not actually correct. This chart was brought, as every time a change has been implemented, it's been brought, this was brought about 6 months ago or so approximately, and I'd have to look up to find the exact date, but this chart was brought and reviewed thoroughly with council. And it was-
Okay.
it was-
I'd like that date, if you
Yeah.
could. But I guess my question really in the big picture is, with this new organizational chart that has the one you presented in this agenda, so what I interpret out of this is that the budget of salaries and wages is based on this organizational structure right here. So all these positions would go into the salaries and wages. And then when there's any changes or any new titles at management or foreman or whatever they are, that's when you introduce the organizational structure to us? Because that would be a budget impact. If people are moving up to management and whatever, there'll be budget impacts. And so that's when you are bringing it to us, is when there's budget impacts on the organizational structure and the changes to it?
Oh, always, yes, especially anything that impacts the budget. And there was a thorough discussion about specifically the enhancements that were required due to needing a properly certified water operator, and what that would be bringing in, and the way we would utilize them to get the most out of the cost that we were going to have to incur for that, because a fully certified water operator has a different market value than a regular public works crew.
Yeah, I guess maybe I don't recall the foreman title when we brought on that person, so that's, with the changes to it, I guess my main question is that this reflects our current budget then in 2024, this chart that is in front of us today. Okay. So we have a motion to accept. Oh, yes. Thank you. No, you're the looker of, what did I call you earlier? The watcher of arms or whatever.
So the only slight adjustment is to find some strategic savings is that we're currently not utilizing two of the roles because we've been able to maximize the overall, again, this was to find savings with the budget that we brought. And so right now, because of so we're not currently funding the strategic assistant to the CAO, because that's been kind of on hold because we're pulling resources from another current role that we have. And then as well as that parks lead right now, we've been able to make some internal things work. And so that's currently not being funded as well. So that's not currently in the budget.
But, sorry, Mayor?
Go ahead.
What?
It's just ready.
But for the parks person, is that, they're not ever coming back, or is it gonna be seasonal, or?
If we were gonna redo it, what we basically say is we're making it work for now, and then anything we would do to, is that would be a future kind of level of service discussion with council, because we think ultimately if we're gonna enhance that, that's something that needs to be enhanced with the discussion with council. But we've been able to make it work for now.
Okay, any other questions? We have a motion to, did we have the motion?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Call the vote then to accept the organizational chart as information. All in favor? That's carried. And we have item 9.7, current salary grid, information and comparative summary. And this motion needs to go to the finance committee, not the PGC, because it's, yeah. Yeah, so we have to change that motion. If I can find it. Put the motion, oh, there it is, to refer the, so we just need to change that. Deputy Mayor's making that motion?
I move the council refer the current salary grid to the finance committee for review.
Okay, Councillor Moore?
I would ask for a recorded vote and say again, what on earth is any committee going to do with the salary grid? We've seen it. We wanted to see it, we saw it. And again, I do not want to be on the wrong side of this one. We should not be messing with salary grids. We have HR to do that, experts. We are not experts.
Okay, any other comments? Call the vote, all in favor?
Are you voting or comment?
I was gonna comment.
Okay.
I just had some questions.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead then.
I'm just looking at a small town like ours, just over 5,000 people, and we have 6 levels of management. Like, that seems a lot. I'm just curious, like, are all those positions that are currently have people in them?
Ethan?
No, and don't mistake, this is just a structure that was developed years ago. It doesn't, each of these is a grade structure, not a position. So that means, so it doesn't represent, all those aren't associated with a position. That's just a basic structure. And so then each position falls somewhere in the grid. It's just a framework.
My second part of my question would be, because we just heard that it should be HR that's looking after this. Is it HR that actually builds this document? Because it's Stephanie that does this work.
Yeah, this was developed years ago. I don't know, Steph, if you want to add anything about development of that, but it's.
Yeah, I mean, essentially what I would do is do comparative studies with, like communities, sometimes it's suggested what communities you would like involved in that, and I have a really good group of colleagues. I can't hear you. Okay. Sorry. Well, there's not, yes, essentially, sorry, thank you, Lisa. Yeah, so essentially I would,
Sorry.
there we go. Oh. I know, it's been a long time. Middle button. Sometimes, okay, oh, there you go, thank you. Yeah, I guess in short term, yes. After all that, so, yeah, that was created in 2015 when we had an external wage review happen, and me and the CFO at that time created that and brought it forward based on those recommendations. And then typically every year what you would do is you would make sure that you're following within other comparative studies, within that 60th percentile as per the policy. So we're always looking at the different positions, because if you go to the next page, you will see that that's where similar positions within the organization are lumped into, and that was also based on the comparative study that we did externally. So that's how we created that grid. But I mean, every year it is a good thing to always be looking and comparing. I'm always involved in salary structure, wages from other communities too. So yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
When I'm hearing that this is an old document, that I was concerned that if we haven't been maintaining it, but it sounds like it is being maintained.
Well, yes and no.
Oh. Whenever council approves a COLA, we apply the COLA to the grid.
Yeah, the COLA is being maintained, but we haven't really been doing comparative studies for the past.
This hasn't been updated since it was built.
Correct, just the COLA. Yeah, yeah, because, yeah. So, yeah, thanks.
So is this something that we, I think I remember back when Harold was here, salary grid was brought to us and we approved that grid. Is this something that should be getting brought back to us for like update, the study be done on it again, the comparative study be done, and then it gets brought back to us for update? I don't think, I'm not gonna get involved in doing the comparative,
No,
but.
it's totally relative to the budget, this
Yeah.
grid,
So,
totally.
yeah, I have no problem with it being brought back, for approval, like, to look at. I think the intent is to make sure what we're supposed to be in the 60 percentile. And I would hope that our staff are there, and if they're not, then that, we need to address that and get them there.
Yeah, and have opportunity in the grid for step changes and whatnot. Like the grid is meant for merit as well, right? And the COLA might apply COLA, but it doesn't apply merit or grid steps based on years of experience or whatever. And it's relative to our budget. I asked that organizational structure question that all those positions now are funded in the proposed salary and wages of 2024, and this grid is relative to how they are placed there, and that's 60%, so.
But should we, sorry,
Go ahead, we're just talking.
should we not be asking, in this case, I guess it's probably Stephanie, to do that comparative and bring that back to council?
Well, we're sending it to PGC, right?
No, that should go to finance.
Finance, yeah, well, it's to the finance committee, and then they'll make the recommendation back.
So that's what they would be doing with it, is
Yes.
getting the
Comparative.
grid updated. Okay.
Mhm.
Sorry, I don't mean, I maybe said that wrong. Not getting it updated, just making sure that we are in the 60 percentile.
Shouldn't, if we want to measure that, shouldn't we then in our budget fund so she can do one of those? And maybe find out if she wants to do?
Yeah.
That's what FPC is tasked, FPC will set the direction on that when they get there. So they'll have the discussion, you'll set the direction on how you're gonna deal with the grid. And that is why we're sending it to FPC, so we're at 9:16 right now, and we have a whole bunch of other items to deal with, so. There's a motion to send it to FPC, and I'll call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, we have item Disbury 9.8, Disbury Chamber of Commerce, Disbury Chamber Business Conference sponsorship. Somebody like to make a motion? Well, you can accept it as information, or you can make the motion. Councilor Moore?
You went to this one last time, right? The agribusiness?
Yes,
And it was good?
it is good.
Okay, I'll make the motion then to provide, and I think it's recommendation from Alexa, right?
It is.
I move to provide $500 from the Economic Development Promotions Public Relations budget to sponsor the Disbury Chamber of Commerce Women in Agribusiness Conference, and $10 to secure a vendor table for the Town of Disbury Economic Development Department.
Okay. Deputy Mayor?
I'm wondering if we can get any statistic on how many sponsorships this organization has asked for this year. That may be not something that can be answered tonight, but we seem to get repeated from one organization, and we have a policy on sponsorship.
I believe it was 2 events last year, one of which ended up getting canceled, and so it ended up was the one that we funded.
I meant, like this year, have we done?
In 24.
Like in 2024.
24.
So far in 2024?
Yeah.
None.
No.
Okay.
And this,
Sorry.
the motions,
We did just pass the year.
so the motions here, I just wonder about the vendor table, and I think I'd like some information back, and I know we can't have it tonight. We can't have it tonight because I know that Economic Development Officer will be there, and I think I'm gonna follow up with some questions about that, which is, you know, what would our vendor table, generally our vendor tables are council. So I'm interested in the presentation of the vendor table and how that will play out, and council involvement or participation. And otherwise, it's economic development. Alexa, it's her budget. She has a motion here to take it out of her budget and sponsor that. And she helps them with it too, I think. And it is in Didsbury, which is important to me that it's in Didsbury, because there has been discussion about it being in Olds. So I appreciate it's in Didsbury. So I will have some follow-up questions for Alexa when this vendor table gets put together. Not the $10, I'm not worried about the $10, but. So who made Councillor Moore made the motion. I will call the vote, all in favor. That's carried. Okay, we have Olds College Dinner of Distinction sponsorship.
I'll move the council accept this as information.
Any comments or conversation, questions? Call the vote, all in favor? That's carried. And we have the moment I've been waiting for. Everybody had the opportunity to, 9.10 Mid-Size Mayor's Caucus update. This was a great group of people and a great group of people sitting at the table finalizing. I think we had 15 mayors in the last meeting. And we certainly hope to, now that the terms of reference in the group is going to go forward, certainly hope to start inviting more people to the table and however they can get there. So I don't know if anybody's aware of the mid-sized cities and their 25 membership that they just had a summit. They are actually funding advocacy efforts and pushing the mid-sized cities forward. And towns just don't want to get left behind. Another part of that is our mayors of South Central Alberta are going to have a meeting to discuss. Most of them are involved in this group, so we don't see need for duplication of other groups, and that this caucus would be the one that I would participate in. Councillor Moore, McCoy?
I'm just curious, I'm reading on page 4, item AI2. What, like, a mid-sized town is 1,000 to 14,999?
Well, that's what the people at the table were involved in the discussion, and we felt that this was a fair number to start with. I know large towns are called 5,000 and up. No, we can really define ourselves because, as Councillor Moore often refers to, it's dropped out of the MGA even what a town and a city is, so we can make that decision. And the groups at the table were very actively involved politically, so they wanted to continue to participate.
I guess the name
We won't.
doesn't match. Like mid-sized to me sounds like something in the middle of all the possibilities. Right?
Yes, and we thought part of that too is there's 2 cities, 2 above 10,000 that are already in the cities caucus, so they won't, and there's only 2 other ones that aren't participating over 10,000. So we left it at that and said going forward it'd be kind of a play it by ear thing, see how effective. This can change, like any document, and based on the group's input and involvement.
Motions?
We'll have a motion and a question.
I'll move that council approve the membership of the Alberta Mid-Sized Town Mayors Caucus as per the terms of reference and agree to pay the $250 membership. I just don't know where that's coming out of.
Yeah, out of the, go ahead, Luann.
I actually added that afterwards, to be funded from the council membership budget.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Moore?
As you know, this is something that I really care about. And
Will represent as well. You will.
But I am concerned because I don't know how much it's going to cost. And the $250 membership goes without saying. But if we're talking about meetings where you're on the executive and you're going to be the designated membership for accounts receivable, and we were more than $7,000 over our travel and subsistence budget last year, and that does bother me because we're expecting better from our staff. And so I think I see that you can participate virtually, but I'm pretty sure at the beginning you don't. And I'm wondering how much is this gonna cost us? And how often are these meetings? I see there's one at AUMA, or whatever they call it now, and that one makes sense because everybody's gonna be there already. As
Yeah.
far as all the membership coming.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna attend in person and there's caucus meetings and membership meetings and this and that, and we have to host, this is a budget implication and I have no idea what it means.
The chair is mostly gonna be the host, but, the part of that is we're taking away the mid-size, or the mayors of South Central Alberta, which is 4 or 5 times a year, plus travel as well. So the meetings themselves will be replaced. The caucus will replace the mid-size, or mayors of South Central Alberta. And I'm not on the caucus yet, so that certainly is something I'd be willing to not charge for. If I'm on the caucus executive, I would charge for not the planning meetings, but just to be at the meetings. So I'm fine with that, I acknowledge that, and if it is going to be above what I'm currently doing, then I think that's a fair observation. But I certainly will be mindful of that. I commit to council to be mindful of the expenses incurred, and participate virtually when I can, and we might even go to more virtual as it gets bigger, because we're trying to be mindful too that we want more people to participate.
Well, especially the ones that are down in the 1,000 range, they have no budget for this. And if they are always virtual and everybody else is in person, that's going to make it more and more difficult for them. So I would appreciate if it was virtual, and certainly if you didn't charge.
Yeah, I'll be fair, for sure, yeah. Ethan?
Just a slight clarification.
I just want to clarify that I don't believe council's over on their training and development. There's 2 different funds for that, and totaling 39,000. And right now the costs come out to 39,932, but just looking at it quickly, 6,500 for that MPC training was charged there too. So I'm not sure if that's in the right spot or not. I'd have to go look at what the motion said, but that is outside of your normal year anyways, so just for information.
Thanks for that, Amanda. Councillor Moore?
Oh, just because that it came up, I was looking at the line by line, and it says that we budget for council revenue was 30,000, and we took out 45,540. So we were 15,540 over the amount that we budgeted to take out of reserves for council. And that's another concern, because I was wondering why that happened.
Can we deal with that at the next budget meeting?
Yes, we
Okay.
can. Thank you. And I'm happy to do that. It's just that that's why I'm concerned about expenses particularly.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? We have a motion then to approve membership. The MTMC, I'll call the vote. All in favor? That's carried.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move that council approve Mayor Hunter to submit her name to be considered for election to an executive caucus committee or executive board member position.
Okay, any other questions? I think I've answered all your concerns. Call the vote. All in favor? It doesn't mean I'll be elected either, you know. I've got some pretty big voices in there. And the third motion?
And Mayor, thank you. I'll move that Mayor Hunter submit the town of Disbury to be considered for the role of the designated membership municipality for accounts payable and receivable.
And I do want to defer this to administration, that we, I can submit our name, but we certainly want their input. It's, as you read, it's maybe for conference rooms and for cookies and coffee, and they submit the invoice every other month, if they even invoiced. Well, no, the account would have to be under the municipality. And does that bother anyone on council or our CFO? You didn't read our agenda?
I think we need to allow for a budget implication if that's.
Yeah, our next meeting is February 23rd, so we don't have to have an answer on this motion. So why don't we just defer this to the next meeting, table it to the next meeting? Yeah, like the meeting where we do the elections and name the accounts payable receivable. So I'll get something to bring back for that.
I think that would be.
Do you want to withdraw that then?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure, so do we need to put this in at all then, in any fashion?
Well, we need to bring it back. Well, the first two already passed, but then this one we'll bring back to we'll just make sure it gets back on the agenda and I'll get information about that.
Okay, so no motion.
So, yeah, just note it for our next agenda.
Put it for the next motion.
Okay, what is it?
I move that we accept the correspondence provided as information.
Okay. Comments, conversation, I guess questions, Councillor Windsor?
Thank you, Mayor Andrews. There is a request from in the letter from Minister Rebecca Schultz with regard to drought concerns and actually asking municipalities to develop a water shortage plan. And so I think that it would be appropriate for us to respond to that.
So I think the motion for that should be to bring this letter back as a business item, and then we can set direction on that. Would that be fair? Like, I think we'd like to respond to the minister in what the drought plan and all the implications. And so when we bring it back, we can have a discussion at the time as a business item, and then set any direction council would like to see.
Does that maybe coordinate water commission with any response? Because they're gonna do something.
Well, they have a lot to do with this, yeah. Because they have,
I'm just wondering if it might be a joint response rather than an individual.
well, we have to set our town's parameters based on the commission's recommendations as well, plus any other thoughts our municipality had. So the quickest way, since it's 9:31, is to bring it back and then start the conversation there.
So we have the motion for new information, so we should be voting on that first, correct?
Yes.
And the motion to bring you back.
Yeah, and I'd also like to direct the mayor to write a letter to Commander Zablocki and congratulate him on his retirement. So we'll set that as information. I'll call the vote. All in favor? That's carried. And then,
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. I'll move that we refer the letter from Minister Rebecca Schultz to an RFD in a future, well, I guess in February 13th council meeting.
okay, call the vote. All in favor? That's carried. And then to have the mayor write a letter to Deputy Commissioner Commanding Officer Curtis Zablocki, congratulating him on his retirement. You're making that, Deputy Mayor made that? Call the vote, all in favor? That's carried. Okay, we're going to defer the council meeting highlights. We're going to ask anybody in the gallery if they would like to take the speaker's seat and ask questions or comments.
I'll be quick.
We don't make our guests hustle, we make our council try to hustle, which is never successful.
Sorry? Just want you to see the mic. Okay. How come it's not red? Linda Pluis. I concur with the last thing about water. It was my concern on the southeast, if there happened to be a grass fire with a threat of drought, as in Carstairs and in Airdrie recently, do we have enough capacity and resources to fight that fire?
Does anyone want to address that?
Sure, thank you for the question. So from an emergency management perspective or emergency response perspective, yes.
Okay.
We have mutual aids, we have water storage capacity, we have a flow rate issue in a couple of hydrants, and that's it.
So if the fire is coming in from the county, and so the southeast corner is protected, I guess is what I'm asking. Just as they were saying about the letter, what is the plan if there's a big grass fire for the southeast and you're saying we're good?
Well, so a county fire is a mutual aid response,
Yeah.
okay? And then at the same time, we would be planning on how to protect the community from the grass fire.
Yes.
Whether that be cutting grass, spraying water, whatever. So I don't want to get into too many what ifs if I can avoid it. I think it's just suffice it to say that we can manage anything.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here tonight, Linda. And Phil snuck out on that. We kind of dashed out, actually. But, okay, so I'll have a motion to adjourn to close meeting at 9:36. Councillor McCoy, call a vote, all in favor? That's carried. Okay,
So am I doing the first motion for the water?
sure,
All right.
yes.
I will move that council direct Mayor Hunter to forward the letter to the Mountain View Regional Water Services Commission regarding the supply agreement.
Okay, call the vote, all in favor? That's carried. The next one is, can you just repeat it, Jocelyn, for us?
To have the chief administrative officer respond to the mobile home trailer utilities request as discussed.
Deputy Mayor, call the vote, all in favor? It's carried. Councilor Moore?
I move that, closed meeting items 13.1, 13.2, 13.4, and 13.6 be deferred to, council meeting on January 30th at 5 o'clock.
And that a council meeting be set for Tuesday at
Yes.
5 o'clock.
And that
It's
council
not to be
meeting
set, isn't it? You said something about extension.
Just reconvening.
reconvened.
It's in
Yes.
camera anyway. It's closed.
Yep,
To reconvene.
Say that-
Reconvened is correct, better.
say that again then.
To reconvene the January 23rd, 2023 regular council meeting to discuss items 13.1, 13.2, 13.4, and 13.6 to close meeting at 5 p.m. on January 30th, 2024.
Perfect.
Okay, call the vote, all in favor? That's carried. And a motion to adjourn.
He's not here.
You know, Councilor Windsor is the first time ever.
He never wants to go.
Yeah, he never gets his hand up for John or Mel Crothers or.
Yeah, no, it's pretty quick.
Yes, he was. It was his motion.